Good evening and welcome to this July 21st, 2014 zoning meeting of the Charlotte City Council. I am Michael Barnes, Mayor Pro Tem of the city. I'm going to begin by having my colleagues around the dais introduce themselves, beginning with the city clerk, and we'll then hear from the illustrious group of people to my left, our zoning committee, and they will be introducing themselves as well. Madam Clerk.
Stephanie Kelly, City Clerk.
Al Austin, District 2.
Ed Driggs, District 7.
I'm John Autry, District 5.
Patsy Kinsey, District 1.
Claire Fallon, City Council at Large.
Good evening. I'm Vi Lyles, City Council at Large.
David Howard, City Council Member at Large.
Greg Phipps, District 4.
Good evening. Kenny Smith, District 6.
Good evening. LaWanna Mayfield, District 3.
Ron Carley, City Manager.
Teree Hagler-Gray, Senior Assistant City Attorney.
Okay, thank you all so much. The mayor is away tonight, unable to be with us, but I'm sure he'd love to be here for this riveting zoning meeting. I'd like to turn our attention next to our zoning committee and the chair and let her introduce her colleagues.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Tracy Dodson. I am the chair of the zoning committee. Let me introduce the other commissioners that we have here tonight. I have Commissioner Karen Labowitz, Dion Nelson, Mike Sullivan, and Ray Eschert. Our zoning committee will meet next Wednesday on July 30th at 4:30 here in the Government Center. At that point in time, we will make recommendations based on the petitions heard here tonight at the public hearing. We will remind you that this meeting is not a continuation of the public hearing. However, we invite any input that you want to give us prior to that meeting, and you can find our contact information at charlotteplanning.org.
Thank you so much. If everyone would please join me in a brief prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States. Let us pray. Thank you, Lord, for this day. We thank you for the rain that you provided us today. We ask you, Lord, to look after our families and our friends while we're here at work. We pray that you will provide this council with the wisdom and the guidance to do the good work of the people of Charlotte. We pray, Lord, that you will bring peace to very volatile situations in our world, at the Texas border, in the Middle East, in the Ukraine. We know that you will do your will, Lord, and pray that things will work out for the betterment of mankind. We thank you for all that you do for us, and it's in your name that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all so much. We have several petitions tonight to be voted upon, several for deferral, a few for withdrawal, and several for hearing, and I will turn it over to Ms. Keplinger and begin that process.
Yes, sir. In terms of items for deferral, item number 2, petition 2014-19 by the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Planning Department. It's a corrective rezoning on Siloam Church Road, 2-month deferral to September 15. Item number 3, 2014-21, it's a decision. The petitioner is the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Planning Department. It's a text amendment for mobile farmers markets. It's a deferral for 2 months to September 15th. Item number 4, 2014-27, it's a decision for a petition by the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Planning Department on DeVant Street between Remount Road and Merv Place. It's a 2-month deferral to September 15th. Item 17, petition 2013-94, Halverson Development Corporation at Prosperity Church Road and Ridge Road, a deferral for 3 months to October 20th, 2014. There's a protest petition on this case, and the sufficiency is yet to be determined. Item number 18, 2014-003, it's a hearing for George M. Macon. It's on the southeast corner at the intersection of Audrey Kell Road and Marvin Road. It's a 2-month deferral to September 15th. There's a protest petition, and it is insufficient. Item number 19, 2014-44 for C. Gray Pool at Park Road and Woodlawn and Montford Drive. This is a request for a withdrawal. Item number 20, 2014-49 is a hearing for SBBH LLC at Morrison Boulevard and South Park Drive and Sharon Road. a 2-month deferral to September 15th. And item 33, 2012-90, which is a hearing for a text amendment by the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Planning Department for the Board of Adjustment. This is a request for a withdrawal.
Would the council like to take separate motions on the deferrals and the 2 withdrawals?
Motion to defer the petitions outlined by Ms. Kathleen.
Second. Any questions or discussion? Mr. Smith.
I have one comment on petition 2014-040. I don't know if the petitioner is here tonight, but it looks like we're going to grant you a deferral. I think in some ways you were granted, a little bit of a reprieve. I got a call late afternoon from the citizen that filed the protest petition, and it sounds like as if you guys may have just reached out to them at the day of the vote. I would like to think that with this week delay that you may have some opportunity to discuss the issues with the citizen and take advantage of that week and put some work into it on his behalf. The phone call received from Mr. Tom Duggins. I believe you have his contact information, and I wanted to make sure that...
I think you were addressing 2014-40.
40.
And that one's a little different because it's a protest petition. The mayor's not here, so there's an automatic deferral to next Monday, the 28th.
Yeah.
I was referring to the ones at the top.
Sorry.
Okay. So there was a motion and a second on those. Can we vote on the deferrals at the top of the page? We'll get to it. All in favor of the deferrals?
Aye.
Is there a motion on the 2 withdrawals?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, those 2 motions passed. So again, just for clarity's sake, folks, Mr. Smith was referring to item number 9, which is 2014-40, which is the Sardis Road Land Company, LLC. It's on the east side of Sardis Road at Waverly Hall Road and Chevron Road. Because the mayor's not here, we're down a person, and there's an automatic referral to next Monday night during our business meeting. We'll take care of it then. Mr. Smith, was there anything else you wanted to add on that?
No, I think I sufficiently addressed it.
Make a motion. It was automatic.
Yes, automatic, yes. Okay, and so to get to the decision piece tonight, the first item up for decision, Ms. Keplinger, is 2013-90 by the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Planning Department for a text amendment to the City of Charlotte zoning ordinance to create new definitions and regulations for eating, drinking, and entertainment establishments. An exemption process is added. I believe Mr. Autry talked about this and some others. An exemption process is being added, including criteria to be eligible to apply for a certificate of exemption when an existing eating, drinking, and entertainment establishment cannot meet proposed separation distance requirements. I believe Mr. Brown also talked about it. Is there a motion to adopt the statement of consistency as recommended by the zoning committee and to approve this petition as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Mr. Howard.
Just wanted to thank staff as well as the volunteers and community to help with this one. It wasn't an easy one, but it was one that's been coming for a while, so I think we'll be a better community because of it. And if you don't like it, call Ms. Campbell. Don't call her. So just wanted to say thank you there.
I appreciate that. And by the way, folks, this petition is found to be consistent with the center's corridors and wedges growth framework and to be in the public interest. The zoning committee voted unanimously in support of it. And we have a motion and a second by this body. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. The next item for decision is petition number 2014-29. It's in the City Council District of Mr. Smith by Kyle Short for a change in zoning for approximately 1.58 acres located on the south side of East Woodlawn Road between Old Woods Road and Fairbluff Place from R4 single-family residential to UR2CD urban residential conditional. This petition is found to be consistent with the Park Woodlawn Area Plan and to be reasonable and in the public interest. Is there a motion to adopt the statement of consistency as recommended by the zoning committee and to approve this petition as amended?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Mayfield. Any discussion? Mr. Smith.
One quick comment. I do want to compliment the petitioner. I think they took feedback that we provided at the meeting and did work to make some aesthetic design changes to try to make it a little more in keeping with Madison Park for a recommendation from folks on the dais. So
That's encouraging.
Make sure that they were noted for that.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. The next item for decision is Petition 2014-31. This is one of these items that I believe Ms. Keplinger wanted to provide some additional information to us regarding. So, Ms. Keplinger?
Yes, sir. This is Petition 2014-31 by Wilkinson Properties Partnership, and it's located in the Palisades development. This has already gone to public hearing, and at the time of the public hearing, the petitioner submitted a new site plan that night at the hearing. Once staff reviewed that site plan, which had been worked out with the adjacent property owners, we discovered that it was not in compliance with several of our ordinances, including the subdivision ordinance, and some major changes needed to be made to the site plan. In order to be fair to the adjacent property owners that had worked hard with the petitioner, staff felt like it was appropriate to have a new public hearing, and zoning committee also recommended a new public hearing. If the council would wish for us to hold a new hearing, then we will set that schedule for September the 15th.
Okay. Just for clarity, this is a petition. It's 2014-31 by Wilkinson Partners for change in zoning for approximately 5.9 acres. As you indicated, in the Palisades community, it's near Youngblood Road and Shelburne Farms Drive. The zoning committee, by the way, recommended to approve the petition. The zoning committee recommended to the council that changes to the petition are significant enough to warrant a new public hearing. Is there a motion to recommend the new public hearing? Motion by Mr. Howard, second by Ms. Kinsey. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So that matter will be on for a public hearing in September.
Yes, sir.
The next item is Petition 2014-35. It's in the City Council District of Mr. Phipps, District 4. It's by Electrolux North America Incorporated for a change in zoning for approximately 90 acres located on the southeast corner at the intersection of David Taylor Drive and Claude Freeman Drive from RE2, which is a research zoning, to RE30, research optional, and O1CD, office conditional, with 5-year vested rights. This petition is found to be consistent with the University Research Park area plan and to be reasonable and in the public interest. Is there a motion to adopt the statement of consistency as recommended by the zoning committee and to approve this petition as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second by Ms. Fallon. Any discussion? Mr. Howard.
John's in the audience, so thought we should just say thank you for the contribution you made to the community recently with the air conditions. We don't take that type of corporate support for granted, so just thank you.
And for the soon-to-come 800 jobs?
Those two.
that will pay over $100,000, I believe, on average. So a lot of good stuff happening at Electrolux. Right. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you, John, and everyone else at Electrolux. The next item is Petition 2014-39. It's in the City Council District of Ms. Kinsey in District 1. It's by John M. Meyer for a change in zoning for approximately 0.145 acres located along North Davison Street between East 35th Street and East 36th Street from B1, which is a neighborhood business zoning, to MUD optional, which is mixed use development optional. This petition is found to be consistent with the Blue Line Extension Station Area Plan and to be reasonable and in the public interest. Is there a motion to adopt the statement of consistency as recommended by the Zoning Committee and to approve this petition as amended?
So moved.
Second. Second by Ms. Mayfield. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Again, item number 9 is the one we just discussed, 2014-40, that will be voted upon by the council next Monday night at our business meeting. The next item is Petition 2014-41, which is located in the City Council District of Mr. Austin. It is by Dominion Investments Properties, LLC, for a change in zoning for approximately 2.92 acres located on the north side of Pete Brown Road at the intersection of Old Statesville Road and Pete Brown Road from I-1 light industrial to I-2 conditional, general industrial conditional. This petition is found to be consistent with the Northeast District Plan and to be reasonable and in the public interest. Is there a motion to adopt the statement of consistency as recommended by the Zoning Committee and to approve this petition as amended? Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is Petition 2014-45, which is in the City Council District of Mr. Driggs, District 7. It's by Parag Patel for a change in zoning for approximately, and I apologize for butchering that name if I did, for approximately 5.5 acres located on the northeast corner at the intersection of Johnston Road and North Community House Road from CC Commercial Center to CCSBA Commercial Center with site plan amendment. This petition is found to be consistent with the South District Plan and to be reasonable and in the public interest. Is there a motion to adopt the statement of consistency as recommended by the Zoning Committee and to approve this petition as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Smith. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries as well.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to make a motion that we recuse Councilmember Dave Howard from the decision on item 12, petition number 2014-46.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Howard is excused from petition 2014-46, which is our next petition. It's item number 12. It is in the City Council District of Mr. Austin, District 2. It is by the Housing Partnership for a change in zoning for approximately 3.38 acres located on the northwest corner at the intersection of Statesville Avenue and Moretz Avenue, abutting Moss Lane and Tranquil Oak Place from R22MF, which is a multifamily rezoning, to UR2CD, urban residential conditional. This petition is found to be consistent with the Central District Plan and to be reasonable and in the public interest. Is there a motion to adopt the statement of consistency as recommended by the Zoning Committee and to approve this petition as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second? Second by Ms. Mayfield. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you so much. Mr. Howard will be joining us in just a second. The next item is petition number 2014-47. It's item number 13. It's in City Council District 3, Ms. Mayfield's district, by Hopper Communities for a change in zoning for approximately 3.21 acres located on the northwest side of Youngblood Street between Remount Road and Griffith Street and across from Poindexter Drive from I-2 General Industrial to Todd MCD, a transit-oriented development mixed-use conditional, to Todd MO, transit-oriented development mixed-use optional. This petition is found to be consistent with the New Bern Transit Station Area Plan and to be reasonable and in the public interest. Based upon information from staff analysis and the public hearing by a vote of 5-1 of the Zoning Committee, approved it with a 5-1 vote. Is there a motion to adopt the statement of consistency as recommended by the Zoning Committee and to approve this petition as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Howard. Any discussion? Mr. Driggs.
I would just like to note quickly that a neighbor to this site, Mr. Allison, raised some issues about right-of-way on it, but did work with the petitioner and today withdrew his protest. I'd like to thank him for being constructive and will support the motion.
Okay. Ms. Mayfield.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I would like to thank Tammy and the staff for working on this because I know that there were some concerns. Thankfully, this was withdrawn, but many years ago when this particular property was first purchased, there was discussion as far as what future development would look like. So life has changed a little since then, so now that we're moving forward, I'm glad that the Housing Partnership was able to, the Charlotte Housing Authority, was able to move forward with this particular development. Don't want to mix up the two different organizations and bring a positive development to the south end when I'm seeing so much multifamily that's coming to see some for sale development that's happening that also has a component that's going to have an affordable piece in there as well. So I'm excited about this particular project.
Okay. Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. The next item is item number 14, petition 2014-48. It is in City Council District 1, Ms. Kinsey's district. It's by Marsh Euclid Apartments, LLC, for a change in zoning for approximately 2.99 acres, generally surrounded by South Caldwell Street, Lexington Avenue, Euclid Avenue, and Templeton Avenue from O2 office to, and Todd MO, which is transit-oriented development mixed-use optional, to Todd MO Transit-Oriented Development Mixed Use Optional and Todd MO SPA, which is Transit-Oriented Development Mixed Use Optional with a site plan amendment. This petition is found to be consistent with the South End Station Area Plan and to be reasonable and in the public interest. There was a 6-0 vote by the Zoning Committee. Is there a motion to adopt the statement of consistency as recommended by the Zoning Committee and to approve this petition as amended?
So moved.
Second by Mr. Driggs. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. The next petition is petition 2014-50. I believe Ms. Keplinger may have a word or two for us on that one. It is in City Council District 6 by Copper Builders, Inc. and Cambridge Properties, Inc. for a change in zoning for approximately 9.09 acres located on the southwest corner at the intersection of Carmel Road and Colony Road from R3 Single Family Residential and UR2CD Urban Residential Conditional to UR2CD Urban Residential Conditional and UR2CD SPA, the Urban Residential Conditional with a site plan amendment. This petition is found to be consistent with the South District Plan and to be reasonable and in the public interest. The Zoning Committee voted 6-0 in favor. Ms. Keplinger, did you have any words before I ask for the motion?
Just briefly, there were two protest petitions submitted on this petition. That together they were sufficient. One was removed. The one that is remaining is insufficient, so you do not have a protest petition on this case.
Okay, so no protest petition on this item. Is there a motion to adopt the statement of consistency as recommended by the Zoning Committee and to approve this petition as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? This is going to be nice from what I can tell. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. The next item for decision is item 16, petition 2014-52. It is in City Council District 1, Ms. Kinsey's district, by Snyder Fleet Solutions for a change in zoning for approximately 6.26 acres located on the east side of North Graham Street and generally surrounded by I-85, Reagan Drive, and North Graham Street from General Industrial I-2 to Light Industrial I-1. This petition is found to be consistent with the Central District Plan and to be reasonable and in the public interest. The Zoning Committee supported it 5-0. Is there a motion to adopt the statement of consistency as recommended by the Zoning Committee and to approve this petition as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. Phipps. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Now, that takes us to the hearing portion of our agenda tonight. And make sure I get to the first item, I believe, is 21. Is that right, Ms. Keplinger?
It is, yes, sir. Item 21, petition 2014-54.
Yes. So item 21 is, as Ms. Keplinger said, it's 2014-54. It's in City Council District 5, Mr. Autry's district. And it is by, it is by Quick Trip for a change in zoning for approximately 2.4 acres located on the northeast corner at the intersection of North Sharon Amity Road and Central Avenue from B1 Neighborhood Business and B1 SCD Business Shopping Center to B1 CD Neighborhood Business Conditional. Staff recommends approval of this petition upon the resolution of outstanding issues for the benefit of the public. This is that corner where the closed Shell station is at the Eastland site. Ms. Keplinger. Now we have some speakers too.
Yes, sir. On the map that's on the overhead, you can see North Sharon Amity and Central Avenue. This is the former Eastland Mall site. This is the existing zoning map. You can see that we have B1 commercial uses at the center of the intersection and along the former Eastland site. And then it moves out to office uses, then multifamily residential, and then the yellows being single-family residential. The site's right in the middle, and it's in the commercial area. When you look at the aerial for this site, you can see the former Shell station, as Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, also the former Harris Teeter, and then a portion of the Eastland Mall site. And you can see other developments along Sharon Amity and along Central. In terms of this request, this is a neighborhood business and shopping center request to neighborhood business conditional to allow approximately 9,000 square feet of building area for a gasoline service station and convenience store with accessory pumps and retail uses, and possibly a restaurant. The conditions include detached lighting, which is limited to 22 feet in height, and a 2.5-foot intermittent low screening wall along Central and Sharon Amity, and I will show you more of that wall in just a minute. The building site itself faces Sharon Amity, but it also has main doors to Sharon Amity, to the side street, and also to Central Avenue. You can see there's a portion of the wall that is reserved for a neighborhood monument sign. And again, this shows the location of the pumps in the proposed buildings. In terms of access to the site, there are several routes for this particular piece of property. There's one on Sharon Amity, one on Central, one into the former parking lot for the former Harris Teeter, and then one into the old Eastland Mall access road. From a perspective of what the site will look like, from North Central Avenue, you will see this. The Welcome to Charlotte sign is actually the neighborhood sign that may or may not say that. Then you can see from south from North Sharon Amity, you can see the line of hedges, and the 2.5-foot wall is like behind that line of hedges. And then this is your storefront, the typical storefront with the landscaping. I want to show you these slides because they show you a little bit more about the building elevation without the landscaping. So you can see the front, the two doors on each side, and the south side and the north side, and how they both have entryways. In terms of the future land use plan, the land use plan calls for a mix of office, retail, residential for this site as well as for the Eastland Mall site. So this is consistent with that plan. You can see how we have, again, other commercial zoning in the area, and then we have office, and then it swings out to multifamily and residential. In terms of the plan, the proposal request, it is consistent with the Eastland area plan recommendation for concentration of retail for the Central Avenue and Sharon Amity intersection. We have some outstanding issues related to transportation and some other technical issues that we feel we will be able to resolve before we get to the zoning committee, and staff is recommending approval upon the resolution of those issues.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Keplinger. We have speakers signed up primarily for, but there's one against, so each side will have 10 minutes. Signed up in favor of the petition, we have Mr. Jeff Brown, Jake Sutton, John Bernardo, and Mr. Keith McVeigh. I see Mr. Brown is at the podium. Welcome to you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, member of the zoning committee. It's a pleasure to be here tonight assisting Quick Trip on this proposal. In material that I think has been handed out to you, there's some material on Quick Trip. It talks about a number of the accolades they've received and their approach to business, which I think is very positive, and I commend to your review some of that material. I think it's an example of a business that is raising the bar for their type of use throughout the Southeast. I just want to mention that we're very pleased to have the staff support, and we really want to thank Ms. Keplinger, Ed McKinney, Laura Harmon, Solomon Fortune, and others who've worked very hard on this proposal tonight, and we appreciate all their efforts, as well as the representatives of CDOT. With me tonight are Jake Sutton, who's the regional vice president of Quick Trip, as well as John DiBernardo, who heads up their development in the area. And again, they've been very active on this project. We appreciate not only the staff, but we also thank Council Member John Autry, who has been active in this petition, working primarily with the residents and obtaining feedback from them on what we think is an important proposal, not only for its use, but also for its location. We're pleased with the reception, and we thank the residents who've worked with Councilmember Autry to review this proposal. And I believe Ms. Lindsay has provided material that is in support of this project as well. We think it's important to have engaged the community and the staff and Councilmember Autry's support because we do think this is a particularly important project because of its proximity to the significant investment that the city has in Eastland Mall. I think we do have a PowerPoint presentation. I'll move through some of this. I hope that's the case. Let's see. The location, again, Ms. Keplinger did a great job on this. This is a quick slide that shows the existing conditions. Councilmember Barnes mentioned the old Shell station. I'm going to move very quickly. A lot of effort to try to show changes. One of the requests from the community was to relocate the pumps that would go with the convenience store from the Central Avenue side, as you can see, which was the first item there, instead to move this over to the Sharon Amity side. We were able to accomplish that with an easement that is subject to the council approval of the zoning that would allow the driveway into that portion of Eastland Mall to allow us to have about a 4,000 square foot easement in that location that would then allow the circulation around the pumps in that location. That also comes with the commitment from Quick Trip to improve this driveway as an entrance into one of the entrances that would be into the overall mall property. But more, as importantly, it did allow us to make the change to the design that results in this updated plan. We've also adjusted the plan further to deal with CDOT requests as well as the elimination of an access off of Sharon Amity in this location now. Very important, as I said earlier, this is a site that's been boarded up and basically no longer used for the gas station use. We're coming in with a significantly improved use. As examples that Ms. Keplinger has already shown, commitments for brick wall, for signage, for landscaping, for sidewalks, for street trees. A number of things that we think will demonstrate positive movement for an area that, frankly, some of the parcels nearby could use some more movement. And again, being sensitive to the city's investment as well. Again, we'll go through some of this. As you can see, this is the entrance to the driveway into the mall property. Some more examples of what we're talking about in terms of the landscaping, sidewalk treatments, and otherwise. These are a few slides that give you a sample of really a Quick Trip and the way in which they go about their activities with a kitchen, really elevating the bar of the convenience store program. I'm going to go back real quick here. One of the things I'll mention as well is in this location we have a parcel that had to be part of the rezoning. It is providing some access and is providing some limited parking. But what we have done is provided an opportunity for this parcel in this location, which backs up to some of the other parcels that begin the Eastland Mall area, that this parcel would not have to be a part of the Quick Trip site in order for it to comply with zoning. The reason for that is being sensitive to comments from the staff to allow this if over time this parcel wanted to be acquired and developed as part of the overall property, it wouldn't stand as an impediment to further development of the parcel next door. So that is just one of many examples of the efforts that we've made to try to be sensitive not only to a positive use in this location that moves positive development forward, but also sets the predicate for positive things to happen at Eastland Mall. Again, we commend to you Ms. Lindsay's letter of support. We think this is a great example of all the stakeholders working together in a positive way, and we're certainly happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Brown, we appreciate that. You'll have a rebuttal. We have one person signed up to speak against, and I believe her last name is Miss Johannes. I don't want to mess up your first name, so.
It's Asiab Johannes.
Good evening, Ms. Johannes. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you.
You have 10 minutes. You are signed up to speak against this petition.
Sure.
Yes, ma'am.
I do agree that the building that is potentially set up to set there does look better than the current building there. So start off with the positive. But where I have the issues is, like, I've spoken to them in regards to, they had a meeting and showing the plans to community members or people that live within the 300 to 500 feet range of the actual site. And I attended it, and it was extremely informal. But where I had a couple of the issues were the type of business that it is and I guess the type of people, well, not the type of people, but the amount of people that it'll bring to the area. You know, like it's already congested as it is. There hasn't been any widening of roads occurring in years. I've lived in the area for that long, you know, for 15, 20 years. Nothing major, like widening or making it more convenient. And that intersection is already jam-packed as it is. Plus, they didn't add any, I didn't notice any walking, because like the bulk of that type of business, yes, you'll make a few pennies off of the gas, but what you're really doing is making money from the inside. And they definitely put money in there because they were trying to get people to come in, buy the sodas, buy the hot dogs, buy the cappuccinos, and I can respect the idea of making money, but you have to take into consideration that means that you're going to be bringing in a lot of foot traffic on top of that. And there's already a lot of foot traffic in the area. So I just feel like you're bringing in more traffic car-wise, more people traffic-wise on the feet, so that could potentially be dangerous for the people in the community around there, you know? Like if you might get a hit and run or somebody accidentally occur. Plus there's a bus station that's not too far from that area as it is. So it's already kind of considered a drop-off and pick-up place for a lot of people, you know? So I'm a little concerned just about the additional traffic. And there was no, yes, they were considering putting in a median, I guess, to reduce the traffic gridlock, kind of, but it didn't address the widening of any roads because there will be additional people going into that place to stop off and get gas, which will probably be cheaper than the Shell station that works perfectly fine across the street. So those are more or less my concerns. I just don't think, yes, they're a good employer, they're putting 10, 15 jobs out there, but I just don't think the community could handle the impact of that type of traffic on that corner. It's already congested, it already has issues, so adding another business I don't see helping the situation without the city getting involved in some way, widening a few roads or making the intersections a tad bit better, or potentially putting crosswalks for pedestrians to be able to walk across there, get their drinks, get their hot dogs, and walk safely back home. You know, plus the sidewalks are not in the best of conditions as it is already, too, you know, so you have to take that into consideration. And that's kind of where I'm at it all.
Okay.
But thank you for the time.
Thank you for coming down. We appreciate it. Mr. Brown, you have a 2-minute rebuttal, and if you need more time, at some point I want you to talk about the infrastructure improvements, so I don't want you to consume your 2-minute rebuttal with that. I'll ask it separately if you're not planning to address that.
No, thank you very much. We appreciate some of the concerns that were expressed. I think with regard to some of the issues, for example, the foot traffic and the pedestrian aspects, I think one of the great things that we're actually talking about doing is that we're taking an area now that does in fact have some pretty rugged sidewalks or lack thereof in some instances, and we're going to be providing 5-foot sidewalks, planting strips, streetscape, the wall treatments, all these things that actually we think will enhance the pedestrian activity in the area and will provide a much improved focal point as you move forward with the site. We've also, a technical transportation memo was submitted, was accepted by CDOT. This site is already zoned for commercial use. Again, we're replacing it with a convenience store where there's already a gas station that was used before in this location. So we do understand a desire for all the community, for a lot of the area to improve, and we think we are providing a significant step in that direction in support of the council's investment. And I think the community's desire is evidenced by the community support we've received from the Land Use Committee and others. So thank you very much. We are obviously happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brown. We have Mr. Howard and Mr. Howard.
The district rep, I can yield.
Well, I thought he said he wants to listen to you, sir.
First thing, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I just wanted to say hello to Ms. Carla Dupree, former county commissioner in the audience. I think we should always respect former elected county elected officials. Jeff, we talked about this when we met, and I told you I would bring it up, and it's kind of more of the nature of the orientation of the building for me. First thing you should know is, Mr. Sutton, thank you for reaching out to me earlier to try to talk before we make a decision. But for a lot of reasons, I've been kind of consistent on the way I feel about gas stations, especially when we're talking about urban settings and where we're trying to get buildings up to the street. First thing to know is I visit Atlanta a lot, so I'm a Quick Trip fan. I think you guys do a great job. In this situation, because of the investment of the city and the property behind it, and the fact that this corner, I think, along with the other corner, sets the tone for what we'd like to see, which is more transit-oriented. When we get the streetcar actually built, this will become a major stop. It'll become the end of the line. I think figuring out how to make the main building hug that corner a little bit more so we set an urban tone is important to me. And I'd love for somebody on staff to address that. And Jeff, if you want to, maybe why the constraints of the site won't lend to that. I did talk to Ms. Campbell and Ed a few minutes ago, and they explained kind of if they did try to work with you guys, that's where the half wall came from. For me, it's actually setting up an urban feel for when you get to the Eastland Mall site, so what develops behind it will feel the same way as well. So,
I'll be happy to let Mr. Sutton speak to the constraints that are related to your question, Councilmember Howard. Again, I think by what we have demonstrated in some other areas of trying to do what we can to promote the development and the proximity to Eastland. But let him talk specifically about that question.
And I'd love to get a staff response too, if I could.
Good evening. As Quick Trip, one of our biggest concerns is obviously safety, because we're a convenience store. We run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we have a lot of activity throughout the night. And one of the things that we also do that's different from other convenience store models is that we have a lot of employees with our stores. Like one of the slides that we had in the handout said that we have about 20 employees, upwards of some of the busier stores have about 30 employees, and what that means for us is there's more lot activity, and we really like to have that as visible as possible, which is why we like to have our pumps street side visible. We have people cleaning them at night, customers using them at night, and one of our biggest, excuse me, a little nervous, one of our biggest concerns is employee safety, customer safety, clientele safety, and we want those folks to be visible all night long, all day long, and in between the building and the street for that main reason.
I'd love to still talk to you maybe about it, and I'd
Absolutely.
love to get a staff response to that kind of your thoughts about the urban nature, considering that would be a transit area.
Mr. Howard, our Assistant Director, Ed McKinney, worked with the petitioner on this issue, so we'll let him address it.
Thank you.
Welcome, Mr. McKinney.
Thank you. As Ms. Keplinger showed earlier, in the presentation, there were several site plan iterations that evolved over time to get to this point. We worked and proposed several different variations that attempted to get the building closer to the street, get an orientation that was on Central Avenue. For all the reasons, we're working very hard to think through the future of the Eastland Mall site. At the end of the day, given the nature of the Quick Trip site plan model, where we are today is about as far, I think, as we could work with the model that they have, the site plan constraints that they work under to get to what is a more urban condition. The big move was to turn the gas pumps, to get them to orient off of Central, to get the building, in this case, a little bit closer to a Central Avenue orientation, to eliminate the driveway cuts and access off of Sharon Amity, and to really get to a better set of infrastructure that gets you to that entrance onto to the Eastland Mall site. We do believe there's still room to explore that some more. We really felt like as we got to where they are now, given the model that they had, this was about as far as we could push this site plan, this petition. There's probably some other options that could be explored.
I understand the nature of the fact that this is positive development for these sites, so I'm not fighting it. But I would like for you guys, if you would, just to consider the fact that with the idea of making this an urban center, if you will, once we figure out the streetcar and figure out the redevelopment of Eastland Mall, that setting the tone on that corner is really important to me. And I've been consistent about gas stations. As Walter Fields was here, he'd tell you that. Because I just think we have to change the way that we orient on the streets so that they're not so much of a big deal, but the form actually still works as if it was a regular building on the street. So, thank you.
Thanks, Valage. Ms. Fallon.
Yeah. You put one up in my neck of the woods. I was not happy when you did it, but let me tell you something. It's clean. It's improved a place that's nothing but fast foods and gas stations. And I go there late at night on the way back from meetings, and I feel safe because it's well lit. There are always people around. And it's in the front, and I'm not afraid. I won't go to a regular gas station because it's dark, and you don't know who's there. But this is kind of an oasis on that strip.
Thank you,
Brad. Mr. Phipps and Mr. Smith.
Yeah, I have several questions I'd like to ask. First one is, have the previous tanks from the old service station, have they been removed, or is it your intention to use those existing tanks?
No, we will not be using those existing tanks, and those are in the process of being removed right now. We're assembling the paperwork for now, getting ready to do that process, and it's one of the things that we're doing leading up to, during this rezoning, we're going to be starting the process of removing those tanks, and we'll be placing new state-of-the-art tanks for our store.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I got another question. Will there be any other uses on the site, like trailer rentals, U-Haul rentals, and such as that?
No, we limit ourselves to just Quick Trip. The only thing that we'll sell on the lot will be sold by Quick Trip, and so we do some fresh food inside, and we do drinks and things of that nature, but that's all we will sell is Quick Trip retail.
Okay. And with respect to the neighborhood sign, will you all be actually providing the sign?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so from the design, from the on up?
We offered the original design because it matched the knee wall, the screen wall that we were placing as part of the pedestrian improvements, and we're working with the East Side group on what it needs to say and what it needs to look like.
Okay. My final question. Do y'all have a store, a Quick Trip under construction on Albemarle?
We do, down by Regal Oaks.
Okay. How far is that from this site?
I don't remember exactly, but I believe it's over 3 miles.
Mm-hmm. So is that the distance or radius that you try to maintain between stores?
It varies. One of the things that we liked about this is that Sharon Amity is a completely different feed for us, and we were trying to capture those customers that were on that road that we don't have a store capturing, and then Central Avenue would share a little bit of traffic with the Albemarle Road store, but we were really focused on getting one for Central Sharon Amity as well.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, thank you, sir. Mr. Smith has waived his time, and we've got Mr. Austin, and then we'll conclude, I believe, with the district rep, Mr. Autry.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Just a quick question. I do like the product, and I'm familiar with them in Atlanta. However, there was no concern about, are there similar types of stores and facilities nearby that intersection already? Isn't there already another gas station type convenience store?
That's correct. There's another gas station. We feel there's no other Quick Trip in the area or anybody offering the services that we offer, which is more pumps to choose from, so there's not that heavy congestion. There's 4 points of entry you can get in and out, and we also offer a range of products that they do not, specifically fresh food and the wide variety of drinks.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Autry.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say that I know there's been a lot of back and forth with the staff and Quick Trip on this project, and I wanted to thank staff for all the diligence that they've put into getting the plan to this point. I especially appreciate Quick Trip's friendly nature and ability to get out in front of this project. I think we started first talking about this back in December and had a first meeting with the community folks in February, and Quick Trips was very responsive to the community and the neighborhood stakeholders, and it completely reoriented the entire station front from Central Avenue to Sharon Amity. And I'm just very appreciative that it seems like at this point it's a very a partnership between the community, the staff, and Quick Trips, and I'm just very appreciative, and I hope that we can find ways for all my colleagues to support this. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Autry. I appreciate it. Among the things that Mr. Brown alluded to earlier, but just for the benefit of the public, I would note that the managers of these stores make about $70,000 per year. The assistant managers make $40,000 per year. So you all represent something of a game changer in the convenience store business. And no, what you just said, actually, he made a comment to Mr. Austin earlier, which I think is very much in line with some of the pay and the other things, the amenities that you all provide and offer in the stores. Any other questions or comments on this petition?
Second.
Motion. Well, you should
Move to close the hearing.
Yes. A second from Ms. Mayfield, I believe. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, Mr. Sutton, Mr. Brown, and Ms. The young lady who was here earlier, Ms. Johannes, I believe she left, but thank you as well. She's here? I can't see. Okay, there you are. Thank you for being here, too. The next item on our agenda for hearing is Petition 22, which is item number 22, Petition 2014-56. It is in the City Council District of Ms. Kinsey, District 1. It's by CPCC for a change in zoning for approximately 4.19 acres, generally surrounded by East 4th Street, Charlottetown Avenue, South Torrance Street, and 3rd and 4th Street, the connector for 3rd and 4th Streets over there, from B2 general business to Mud O mixed-use development optional with 5-year vested rights. Staff recommends approval of this petition upon the resolution of outstanding issues. Ms. Kepling.
Yes,
and
sir.
we have speakers, by the way.
This property is a little hard to see, so I put a little yellow overlay on it so it would make it a little bit easier. You can see it's between 3rd and 4th Street, right, and is bifurcated by Charlottetown. You can see the zoning in the area. You have mixed use for, mod optional for the Central Piedmont campus. There's a lot of other mud optional in the area, some business, B2 mostly, and then little pockets of multifamily residential. In terms of the property to be rezoned, it's currently occupied with offices and retail and parking. In this aerial, you can see some of the parking decks and buildings from the CPCC campus. The request is to go from general business to mixed-use development optional with 5-year vested rights. The request is to allow approximately 900,000 square feet of institutional uses that are associated with CPCC. The existing buildings may be renovated or redeveloped. There are commitments that vinyl and sheet metal siding are not permitted. The maximum building heights will be 120 feet. There are multiple optional provisions, but they all boil down to basically allowing the existing conditions to remain until the new development occurs. In this map, you can see the purple line shows the area to be rezoned, and the building envelopes are gray. In terms of the adopted future land use, this property is actually divided. It's partially in the Elizabeth area plan, which is the yellow, and then the main portion of it is in the MMMC, which is the Midtown Moorhead Cherry area plan. The section that's in the Elizabeth area plan, the plan recommends institutional uses, and it calls for the future development and growth of CPCC. The Midtown Moorhead Cherry area plan in the orange actually call for this property to be retail office and residential. So the request is inconsistent. However, that plan acknowledged the CPCC campus and even set as one of the land use goals to make the most of the proximity to CPCC. So in terms of support for this petition, staff does recommend approval upon the resolution of the outstanding issues. While it's consistent with the Elizabeth area plan, it's inconsistent with the Midtown Moorhead Cherry area plan, but we feel it's consistent with the goals that are established within the plan itself. The outstanding issues related to this petition are technical in nature, and we feel that they will be resolved before the zoning committee meeting.
Okay, thank you. We have 3 speakers signed up in favor of this petition. First speaker is Vicky Saville, Jim Allison, and Mark Hansen. There are no speakers signed up to speak against the petition, so you all will have a combined 3 minutes to provide us with your comments.
Thank you.
Welcome, sir.
I'm not Vicky. I'm Jim Allison. I guess that's obvious. Vicky is in San Diego at a conference, but Greg Long, who is Director of Construction for Central Piedmont Community College, is here in her place. My firm, Johnson Allison Horde, represents CPCC. Mark Hansen, my partner, has helped with this. Jeff Smith with Bullough Smith Design Engineering is here to answer any questions you may have. We appreciate very much the working with staff, and we think we've resolved all outstanding issues. There were 2 technical points about a traffic impact study and parking deck usage on the first floor. We've agreed to staff recommendations, and so we respectfully request approval from City Council for us to move forward.
Okay.
I'm happy to answer any questions.
Absolutely. Any questions from council, from the district rep?
I got
Mr. Howard.
Not for the petition, for staff.
Okay, we have a question for staff from Mr. Howard.
Question, and maybe this is kind of obvious and I don't know it. What kind of planning are we doing along the streetcar lines for, as far as transit development? Is that a petscape? But I don't think we're doing station area plans for each one of them. So what kind of planning are we doing? Deborah, they're looking at you.
Assistant Director Laura Harmon will come up to address that question.
And the obvious question I'm getting at is then how far off are we going to encourage transit-oriented development along the streetcar line? And what will we be doing? Because same thing will happen down Batesford Road eventually as well. So.
Yes, actually, I think you might have answered the question. Most of the area, though, not necessarily the way we started out planning it, but has ended up being zoned with the PED overlay district. We're looking for that urban form of development along the streetcar line, which PED provides, but not necessarily the intensity that you would find at the rapid transit stations along the Lynx Blue Line. So we are looking at those urban districts, and we have planned for actually most of the streetcar line is already zoned PED or, in this case, MUD to allow for that urban form of development.
So there's a petscape that goes down Elizabeth?
There's MUD along Elizabeth that we think is very supportive also of streetcar, of that form of development. And then as you move further out, you do hit PED zoning down Hawthorne and out Central Avenue to the plaza. And then looking in the long term, looking at the policy plans out there, do call for that more urban form of development, though not necessarily at the intensity of a light rail station.
Mr. Allison, the reason I'm asking is because most of our light rail stations, we've gone a quarter mile and a half mile out trying to influence the development intensity. And this would be within one because of Elizabeth, because of the streetcar on Elizabeth. And I was just wondering, are we staying just on that corridor of Elizabeth, or do we care what happens a quarter mile out or something around kind of the station? And if we hadn't thought about that, I hope we are thinking about some streetcar strategy, if you will, for development that's more intentional than just kind of, well, we got mud, we got pedestrians, because I would think the ripple effect will go further than just that street that the streetcar is on. So
it does, though it tends to be more linear than light rail because the stops are more frequent. So, but we have looked at that, and intentionally a number of years ago said we wouldn't go with transit-oriented development zoning just because it's a bit too intense, but looking more linearly along those corridors and on abutting streets where there aren't established neighborhoods.
That's all I got.
All right.
I do have
Ms. Kinsey.
a question.
Yes,
Mr. Allison, do you have a site plan? Do you know what is going to be going in these areas? I know there are already buildings on part of this.
Well,
Central Piedmont buildings on it.
Actually, we have not. We're not building on these parcels yet, Councilmember Kinsey. And it depends on the funding we get from the county and the state. But basically, you're looking at classroom, like the old Athens site, which is there at 4th Street in Charlottetown. That's going to be probably a classroom, probably 100,000. These are preliminary. Right. 100,000 square feet, 5-story building for classroom and labs. On the 4th Street piece, which are 2 parcels, again, classrooms, that would support 200,000 square feet. That's all in the planning stages. And on the 4th parcel, where the administrative buildings are now, that's for future development. We're not sure. I think the intent here is to anticipate future development, anticipate when we might receive funding from the county and the state, and have the zoning consistent with the rest of the campus, so that it would be developed in in conformity with the rest of the campus and similar to the rest of the campus. We had a community meeting. I've been in touch with the Dilworth Neighborhood Association. We've had no objections, and so we, again, the intent here is to have a unified development which is consistent with what is there already.
Yeah, you do like the red brick, I've noticed.
Yes, yes.
May I continue?
Yes, please.
This is in my neighborhood.
Sure, I understand.
Elizabeth. And we do feel like that Central Piedmont is nipping away at our edges. So there's a great deal of interest in what's going on there. This isn't exactly, not in the middle of the neighborhood, but like I say, we do feel like we're sort of being nibbled on around the edges. So we're interested in knowing what's going on there.
I think Central Piedmont Community College is very sensitive to that.
Probably so by now.
Well, sure. We have had little contentious situations in the past, but I think we want to work with you, with the Elizabeth community, and make certain that you are informed, and that to the greatest extent possible that you're in accord with whatever we do.
Good. Thank you. We appreciate that very much.
Anything further? Mr. Phipps.
Yeah. I have questions regarding transportation, comments under the transportation section of the staff analysis, where it seems to have questions on whether or not a traffic impact study is necessary or required. I would think that it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that one is required, given that there's a 6-fold increase in trip generation from 4,200 trips per day to 25,000, plus, with all of the approvals that we've made around the dais, around the metropolitan area, I would think that those things would add to the congestion in those areas. And I was just interested in your rationale for whether or not, some question is if it was needed at all until the permitting process. It seems to me that it's appropriate at this point to go forth with it.
Sure. So my name is Mike Davis with CDOT, and that's a great catch. It is a significant increase in the amount of possible trip generation, and I say possible because until the sort of plan unfolds in future stages, we won't really know. And we've talked to the petitioner about this. There's a lot of uncertainty built into how that development will take shape. And so the petitioner mentioned during the presentation that one of the outstanding items that remains is that from the time this petition was submitted, our interest was to get a commitment that as phases come in for development, that we would have a commitment in place that allows studies to occur concurrent with the permitting process. And I would tell you that in an area like this, where we have the benefit of local street network, what we're mainly going to be interested in is how each piece of the puzzle relates in terms of access. So unlike some other petitions where we do traffic studies during the rezoning stage, where we want to make sure there's infrastructure and commitments to build widen intersections, add turn lanes and things, that's probably not going to be the outcome in a case like this. It's going to be more about how do we configure different pieces of the puzzle in order to make sure all the access works within the network. So we expect to see multiple traffic studies throughout the life of this large piece of land.
Okay.
Mr. Smith.
Just to piggyback on Councilman Phipps, if we ultimately vote for approval, and I think we all recognize the important role Central Piedmont plays in our community, and it is definitely an institution we can be incredibly proud of, but if we ultimately approve this, is there anything during the permitting process, are we going to have any fail-safe mechanisms to make sure that whatever development does happen, that these trip generations, if it does reach the 6-fold, I ride down 3rd and 4th Street on a daily basis, and it's already an incredibly congested area. And I do have concerns about the dispersion of the students and how everything will flow, because during rush hour, 3rd and 4th Street, it's backed up from that connector, oftentimes past Hawthorne, and sometimes as far south as Caswell. And I just think that is something we need to, as a city, make sure we have our handle on.
Yes, the direct answer to your question is yes, that the permitting process gives us authority to ensure that the access permit, the driveway permit, can be handled in a reasonable manner as it relates to congestion. So we have that ability, and I would just point out in terms of the raw trip generation, that number is almost meant to be alarming because that represents the uppermost potential of this proposal. I do not think we'll reach that threshold. And the other thing to think about is 25,000 trips per day dispersed through a campus on this network is different than a lot of times what you see in these rezoning petitions.
Follow up, Mr.
Yes, sir, please.
One thing is I do think that understanding how everything is dispersed, is part of it. And I just want to make sure that I don't ultimately vote away a right to make sure that we still have the mechanism in place, to your point, that we often do it in the rezoning process.
Sure. Yeah, and just one little last bit of confirmation. I mean, we would have that right anyway. We're seeking additional clarity and commitment through this process.
Well, appreciate your hard work on that.
Yeah.
Mr. Phipps for a follow-up, and then Mr. Allison. Mr. Phipps?
Yeah. So do we have experience with this phased-in traffic study approach?
It seems to me we did one recently as it related to also, I think it was a CPCC site as well out on West Boulevard, I believe. So we've done it some. Okay. And again, it's where we think we don't want to do a traffic study just to do a traffic study. We want to use it to answer the questions that we have. Our questions will be more pertinent once we know more specifically what the proposal is when pieces come in.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Allison.
I was just going to clarify, in addition to the right that you have, staff recommended specific language about a traffic impact study as each phase is developed, and we agreed to that. We've amended the development notes to put that on the site plan. So it's, it's doubly enforced.
Okay. Anything further from the council? I think there was a motion to close, was there?
Second.
Was there, Mrs. Kinsey?
Yes,
there was. And there was a second by Mr. Austin. Anyone, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed?
Thank you very much.
Gentlemen. We appreciate it. The next item for hearing is item 23. It's petition 2014-57. It's outside the city limits, but the City of Charlotte has zoning authority there. It's by Craig and Amy Fail for a change in zoning for approximately 0.229 acres located on the south side of York Road at the intersection of Langston Drive and York Road from R3, this is in the lower Lake Wiley critical area, to O2, which is office in the lower Lake Wiley critical area. Staff recommends approval of this petition, and I think Ms. Keplinger may have a brief comment or two on it.
Brief presentation. This is a conventional request. You see the R3 and R5 that surrounds the site, and the Grand Palisades Parkway entrance is right beside it. We had a rezoning immediately beside this property in 2013. It was rezoned to O1 CD. This property actually has an existing single-family structure on the site. The land use plan calls for a mix of uses, but this site is only about 1/4 of an acre, so it's going to be very, very limited on what uses can go there in terms of meeting parking requirements and things of that nature. In terms of the plan, staff is recommending approval of it. It's consistent with the Still Creek area plan, and as I mentioned, it is a conventional zoning with no associated site plan.
There are no speakers signed up for or against this petition. So is there a motion, Mr. Phipps?
I have a quick question. So there was no meeting required for this?
There was no community meeting required because it's a conventional case, but we do have the open house forum that we hold in our office that gives anyone that is interested in the area an opportunity to come in and learn about the petition, as well as our other means of notification.
Great.
Okay, I heard a motion to close from Ms. Mayfield. Is there a second? Ms. Lyles gave a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you so much. The next item is item 24. We have speakers signed up for and against this petition. It is 2014-59. It's in the City Council District of Mr. Smith, District 6. It is by Crosland LLC and Alan Tate for a changing zoning for approximately 3.65 acres located on the west side of Sharon Road between Fairview Road and Hazelton Drive from R17MF, which is multifamily, to MUD optional, mixed-use development optional. Staff recommends approval of this petition upon the resolution of outstanding issues. And Ms. Keplinger, I believe you have a presentation before we get to the speakers.
Yes, sir. I want to orient everyone. This is Fairview Road and Sharon Road. South Park Mall is located right here. This is Sharon Towers. Our site is right here on the same side of Sharon Road as Sharon Towers. It is a 3.65 acre site. In terms of what's on the site now, it's 40 apartment units. They're known as the Old Town Apartments. They were built around 1964 and 1963, 1964. And you can see them clearly on the aerial. In terms of the request, it's a request for multifamily residential to mixed-use development optional. To allow 2 hotels within a single building, which with 285 rooms, and that would be up to 285. There's a maximum building height of 70 feet. As you can see from the site plan, you can see the hotel. There's a 1-level parking deck that's limited to 25 feet. There's a buffer of separation between the property and the adjacent residential property. There's a courtyard and amenity area. There's a proposed street that is to go through the property and provide future connectivity. There are several optional requests for this petition, including stormwater facilities, for building features in the setbacks, for parking, for some innovative street design standards, and also for signage. I wanted to show you some of the elevations that they have submitted. This is a north view of the hotel, and you can see it does look like it is, sorry about that, does appear to be one building, and this would be the south side, and you can see the amenity area. This would be from the residential properties to the rear of the site, and you can see the 1-level parking deck and the screening. And then this is the east and north side. In terms of the adopted future plans, the plans calling for multifamily residential with limited retail services on this site. Any new development should be compatible with the surrounding development, and it specifically the plan specifically talks about building height in relationship to the adjacent properties. Now, the proposed request is actually inconsistent with the South Park Small Area Plan recommendation for multifamily uses. The use has some residential characteristics, and it's compatible with the development in the area. It benefits the community by providing the future connectivity, and all the outstanding issues relate to building heights, to street design, and some other minor technical issues that we believe we'll be able to resolve before we get to zoning committee next week. So with that said, staff is recommending approval of this petition upon the resolution of the outstanding issues.
Thank you, Ms. Keplinger. We have 3 speakers signed up, 1 in favor and 2 against. Mr. Colin Brown is the proponent here tonight. Mr. Brown, welcome to you. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem, council members, and members of the zoning committee. My name is Colin Brown with K&L Gates on behalf of Crosland and Alan Tate. Joining me tonight are Alan Tate III and Fred Hines from Tate, and Adam Ford from Crosland. There's Adam in the back. And I can assure you that Mr. Tate and Mr. Crosland are monitoring this closely, hopefully from somewhere a little more comfortable. But thanks to Tammy for
What's wrong with this book?
Well, I said the same. Thanks to Tammy for the overview. I'll give you a little more, since we have some time now, a little more context on the site. As Tammy mentioned, the property was developed in 1963 by the Crosland and Tate families. And since that time, it has been owned and managed as an apartment development by the Crosland and Tate families. What's interesting is we'll talk a lot about the neighborhood behind, which is called Laurelwood, which the Crosland and Tate families also had a hand in developing. And so the single-family neighborhood and the apartments have coexisted for about 50 years. However, over that time, the community has aged, and certainly South Park has definitely changed around it. Due to the tax value of this property, as well as competition from hundreds of other multifamily units that are coming online in South Park, the existing site is just beyond its usable life. It is time for redevelopment there. The property owners have evaluated what can be done on the site, but as I mentioned, because of what else is in South Park, it is just not feasible to redevelop and renovate the existing properties. By way of context, I do want to let you know, and this is something we discovered as we started communicating with the neighbors. Prior to 2007, there was a development plan that encompassed redevelopment of this entire corner. So it would have incorporated the shopping center and this apartment community. Rezoning was never filed on that, but a lot of conversations were had, plans were drawn, and there were conversations with neighbors. So as we went out and met with the adjoining property owners, we found that many of them were familiar with the previous proposals. And so I think in the minds of some neighbors, they knew that there would be redevelopment here likely in the future. Related to that, and I want to point out, these two parcels here at the corner of Hazelton, at that time, prior to 2007, these properties were controlled by entities related to Crosland, as there was an idea that they might be incorporated into the larger development. I do want to point out that Crosland has divested its interest in those properties. They have not owned them since 2007, and as we looked at development of just the apartment property, the decision was made to draw the line here in accordance with the South Park Small Area Plan and not to include these properties in the development. So they're no longer owned or controlled by any entities related to petitioners. However, we have communicated with the owners of these properties to make sure they're aware of our rezoning petition, and these owners did not have concerns with the site plan. You'll see as we talk to owners how feedback from certain adjoining owners impacted the development of our site plan. We've had a lot of engagement, I think, with property owners along Walt and Court here. You may hear from some of them later. I hope they'll acknowledge that we've had a lot of dialogue with them. And as you might imagine, as we talked with them, and when I talk to most neighbors, they want to be impacted as little as possible by the new development. I think there's a recognition that something will happen here. So as I'll show you our site plan, great attention has been paid by Crosland and Tate and their design team to mitigate the impact on these owners on Walden, many of whom are longtime owners. Some have owned there since the lots were developed, so they've lived next to this for 50 years. So it's a big change. You'll see a lot of focus was placed on our relationship to that property. So that's what we've heard from the neighbors, is having as little impact in this area as possible. On the other hand, as Tammy mentioned, the ask from the Charlotte Department of Transportation is, because there is a traffic signal here at the existing driveway, CDOT requested from us the ability to connect a future street through our site so that there could be eventually a street connection from the signal here at Ashley Park Drive deeper into the heart of South Park. So if you see our plan based on where that is, you can imagine essentially we lose about 30% of the site here to accommodate that street. So as we work with the neighbors on Walden and CDOT on this area, what happens is we're really boxed into an area here where we can work on our site plan. And that has led to the site plan that you're looking at. So this is a look at our conceptual plan. This is actually one step further than the plan Tammy showed, and we're still working with both neighbors and CDOT on this. So as you can see, the shaded area is the footprint of our structure. And we've really concentrated that in this location so that we can stay as far away as possible from the neighboring single-family homes on Walden. and that we could provide for this future connection through the site for CDOT. So that leaves us a pretty small building envelope to work with. Tammy mentioned the concern. We have an outstanding issue with staff. We're working on height. Right now, our maximum height is 70 feet. That's exclusive of our architectural features on top, which will be our enhanced roof. But I think I'm correct in saying the staff is comfortable with the overall height. Sharon Towers south of us is at about 100 feet. We're at 70. I think staff's greatest concern is the height and its proximity to this property line. However, as I mentioned, there's just not much place for us to go on this site because of the conditions with the future street connection and what we're trying to set aside for the neighbors here. So we focused on this area. This is where our height and mass is. We have not received concerns from these two property owners where the height is located. What you're seeing here at the rear of the site, this is the parking structure. So we would have structured parking. However, that is limited to one level of parking. So it's essentially there's the ground level and then one table of parking on top of that. We have a 20-foot separation from the property owners on Walden to this deck. So as you can imagine, we've had a lot of conversations with the property owners in this area as to what the deck would look like, what the buffering would look like. And I wanted to share with you, since this time we'll be submitting, this is part of a buffer screening and planting plan, which we will submit as another sheet of our rezoning plan that really illustrates a lot of the commitments that we've made with the property owners. I wanted to point out, some of them are here or watching. We have said we are going to do this. We have showed them several versions of this plan, and we will submit it. However, we couldn't submit it within 30 days of the hearing, so I wanted to point some of those out. Number one, this is the parking structure. It would be limited to one floor in height. Our cross sections here are showing it about 18.5 feet. And let me point out a couple other things. As we've talked to the neighbors on Walden, one of their requests is that we have a solid wall on the lower level of the parking deck. So there will be a solid wall on the lower level, on the upper level, and this is shown here in the cross sections. In this area here, which is closest to the neighbors, there will be an 8-foot wall on the top level of the parking deck. From grade to the top of that 8-foot wall is about 18.5 inches. So we think we'll be in the 20 feet is safe to be lower than that. In addition, we're showing the separation here of 20 feet in this area between the property line and the closest portion of the building. Within that area, we're showing a pretty detailed buffer plan for our plantings in that area. We've talked with the property owners fairly extensively about the types of plants that would be located in here. There is a Duke easement for some power lines, so it does limit what we can do in the very closest zone. But we've talked to neighbors and really individualized plantings based on feedback from them. One of the things I wanted to point out is we talked about getting the building as far away from these property owners as possible. If you could see this site plan in detail, you'd see that this area here, from here to here, is about 173 feet from the property line to the hotel structure itself. If I could overlay a photo of the existing development, you'd see that really the apartment property as it exists today almost has asphalt going up to the property line. So in many cases, there will be an improvement as we'll have some open space, some nice plantings in between, 20 feet before you get to the parking deck, which is capped at, like I said, about 20 feet. And then over 150 feet into the site is where our hotel structure is, but that's as far away from the adjoining property owners as we could get it. In addition, we're providing a fence along the rear property line, an elevation of which is attached. It will have brick piers and panels which are a neutral color. I think I've covered those issues. So again, this is a plan that's gone back and forth between the adjoining owners and us. We will be submitting that prior to zoning committee so it becomes part of the conditions, but I wanted to review them because we've had a lot of conversations with the neighbors. The other issue that we're working through is the CDOT issue of providing the connectivity through the site.
Okay. I know what you're talking about. We'll get back to it. We have two speakers signed up against this petition, Peter Estes and Rachel Kuby. Mr. Estes? Is Ms. Kuby here? Do you want to come on down too? You all have a combined 10 minutes, so decide how you want to divide your time, and we're happy to hear from you. And then Mr. Brown will have a 2-minute rebuttal.
Hi, thanks very much for the chance to speak. I'm a resident of Old Town. I think most of us, the residents, believe that raising the townhomes is already decided, but I do feel a need to speak up for the people who live here and for keeping some affordable housing at the heart of South Park. The renters here aren't a transient population. Speaking for several of us, we don't just live in these apartments, we also work and shop and use services in the South Park area. Several residents work at the mall, at Belk's, at Macy's, at the Apple Store. I work for the library in South Park. One neighbor works for the Whole Foods across the street, and another works at Jimmy John's, or did work at Jimmy John's, the sandwich shop across the street, before her retirement. Two of my neighbors from the complex have lived in South Park their whole lives and remember when the mall itself was horse farms. One of them raised her son in these apartments and brought her mother here when she needed to be closer and needed her care. Her son's soccer games were on the lawn out front before the huge trees were planted. She tells me she will probably be moving to South Carolina to find an affordable place to live that's comparable to what we have here. I've been here 2 years. I've loved having a place where I can make dinner while my kids are playing out front and where I don't need to worry about the kids having to tiptoe around since we don't have downstairs neighbors. I was in the Colony apartments before this, and because they raised my rent about $100 each year I renewed, I had to leave after the third year that I was there. And I think, like myself, most of the reason that renters seem transient is because we have to keep moving as rents go up. I assume you already know what a nightmare the intersection between Fairview and Sharon and this Whole Foods driveway is right now, and how much more congested it'll be with a hotel there. I assume you already know that there are 6 upscale hotels within a mile of our front door, and I assume you already know that the homeowners behind us will be living next to a busy intersection rather than a quiet cul-de-sac. And their gardens and their noise level and their property values will be affected. I'm sure it sounds like they've been in conversation with the planners. But I do hope you'll remember that you also represent the renters that are here. And many of us, of course, may have to change districts as a result of this. But I hope you'll ask that with all of this progress, who exactly it's benefiting if many of the residents are pushed out for more luxury commercial business. And I also want to say, in terms of the management and the history of this complex, that everyone I've spoken to of the residents loves living here, and it's been a blessing for all of us. The townhomes are solid, they're safe, they're clean, they're quiet, they're convenient, and they've always been well cared for. And that's a lot to ask for affordable living, and it's also a lot to lose for the South Park area. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. Mr. Estes, you have 7 minutes.
Won't take 7 minutes. Thank you very much.
Yes,
I do live on Walden Court, and my backyard does face right up against their property. And I had 2 issues I'd like to talk about. One of them was the height of the fence that they'll be allowed to put between the 2 properties. And I know that I have to ask you folks to ask them to get a variance in order to raise that height of that fence from, say, 8 foot to, say, 12 feet, which would give us a little bit less sight of the property. And concerning the traffic and the cut-through traffic that the hotel will bring into the area, request that at the corner of Hazleton and Walden Court that a stop sign be put up to prevent cut-through traffic through our neighborhood. And those are basically 2 issues we'd like to talk about. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We appreciate you all coming down. Mr. Brown has a 2-minute rebuttal. Then we'll take questions from the council immediately thereafter.
I should just say a quick thanks to Mr. Estes. He's been the point person for the neighborhood contact and has endured a lot of back and forth and trying to find some consensus. As he mentioned, we did speak earlier today. He asked me if we could increase the fence height from 8 feet to 10 feet. I mentioned I think that's something that we would consider. I did ask for him to say that to the council, so if we have to get an optional provision to allow that, we'll see. So we'll evaluate that. As far as the stop sign on Hazleton, I'll leave that to CDOT. In response to the concerns of this the current residence is disappearing, certainly that's something we understand. And I think both the Croslins and the Tates feel very strongly about affordable housing. We appreciate the need for it. However, this site, it is time for some reinvestment. And they looked at, could this be a multifamily redevelopment? But the amount of dollars that would have to go into that site to make it competitive with the others, that it would price out a lot of the existing residents. As we looked, and the market analysis shows that there are hundreds of new units coming online in South Park. I doubt too many of them are affordable. But it looked like multifamily market was delivering. We did find that it had been about 15 years since the hotel has developed in South Park. And with the growth of all the multifamily units, all the office units, there's a clear demand for that. The petitioners have applied for, I think I can say, a Hilton franchise. So this was a quality development that we thought, when you look at everything that can happen on this site, which was the least impactful. Generally, you know, the adopted plan recommends multifamily. Hotel is close to that. As we've looked at traffic, of all the different types of traffic, the real issue at Sharon and Fairview are the peak trips. And a hotel use has a lesser impact on peak trips than for, say, retail or residential or office. So we felt that it was a good fit.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brown. We have several members of council who wish to speak. I'd like to begin with the district rep and then continue from there.
I've got a comment and a couple questions, both for Mr. Brown and for staff. First, I want to say this may be a comment that is usually reserved before the actual vote, but I do think it's important for context for everybody around the dais to understand that they've been put in a little bit of a unique position in which they've had to balance the concerns of neighbor planning and CDOT as they work through this site plan, and they have worked hard to appease the neighbors along Laurel, is where that's the highest concentration of non-renters. And it has been I've been involved with it. They've been working very hard on that. A lot of the feedback I've gotten from the neighbors, and this is where I want to see if I can have Mr. Davis step up, is regarding this right-of-way for the road and where that may lead, the likelihood of that happening, and how that may impact the neighbors has been most of the line of the question I've gotten. I'd just like to see if he can help us shed some light on that, because he was unable to attend the neighborhood meeting, and I think it's important. And I have two questions for Mr. Brown.
So hoping that the booth might be able to load up that presentation. All right. So I knew there'd be some dialogue and a need to talk about what the street connection would look like. And so to Councilmember Smith's question about the street, I wanted to go real big picture for a moment and ask you to think also long-term about what a street connection like the one we're talking about can mean in South Park. And so this is the site kind of down here. And I wanted to give you an aerial view just to give you a feel for how that site relates to the entire mixed-use activity center of South Park. And so same image, just took the aerial photo away. And part of telling the story is to let you know that we know that there's a lot of development intensity and pressure in South Park. We've seen that as exhibited by multiple recent rezoning petitions. And with each one, what we're trying to do is figure out how to evolve South Park into that mixed-use activity center. Part of how we intend to manage traffic over time relates to having a strong mixture of uses, because it allows you to reduce trip lengths. They generate a lot of traffic, but having them occur over shorter distances is a helpful thing. So just hold on to that thought. But where I really wanted to go with this is to talk about the streets. And the reason the streets are important is because of this. We know that Sharon Road, at least at the major intersections, are where we experience a lot of congestion today. And we did a lot of widening to those thoroughfares 10, 15 years ago, and we've basically reached the limit of what we can do through conventional widening. And even if we could do more, you're likely to just fill those lanes up with more traffic during peak hours. And so the strategy that is going to serve these land uses is one where we can continue to build out the local street network. And so that is why it's important to understand how we can get little bits at a time through each development that happens. So we can't talk about all of South Park, so just to kind of zoom in on this area that's bound by Park South, Fairview on the north, and Sharon on the east. This is the big idea is how can you get a street to connect from Park South over to Sharon in order to alleviate the kind of probably cut-through traffic that you see through neighborhoods and also congested traffic occurring on Fairview. And so when you bring in this piece, which is a little hard to see, but it's in blue, that's the hotel site. What it represents is an opportunity to get a piece of a future street. The idea would be to connect from the signal at Ashley Park, not through the single-family neighborhood, but skirting along the back side of the development, and eventually, with redevelopment of Sharon Corners, which is why I say very long-term, would connect to the basically where the McDonald's is, if you know where that is on Fairview. So that is a location we think we would probably signalize in the future, which also helps with pedestrian connectivity to transit. And then, so that's the Sharon Corners site there. And then off of that ring road, we would seek through further redevelopment more connectivity to connect in with existing local streets that have already connectivity to Fairview. That is the big picture view, and it'll take us a long time to get there, but that's how a piece of the puzzle like this hotel can help us in the long run. And then just in the near term, what I would just say is, again, I don't think there will be any near-term harm by this street, and certainly the long-term intent would be to provide more relief for than threat to the single family that's behind it. So hopefully that helped. If not, I'm still around.
I think that was helpful, Mr. Pro Tem. He was unable to attend the neighborhood meeting. This was a topic of big concern. So I appreciate you taking some time to put together the presentation. And if anybody has any questions, you can reach out to me and I can set you up with Mr. Davis. Quick question for Mr. Brown, just on the regards of the actual development. Is there going to be any rooftop activity such as, I know it's in a hotel, but some sort of amenity that may actually protrude some noise out into the neighborhood?
No. We're asking for a little room with our height. So instead of having a flat roof hotel, we've got the nice peak roof, which is shown on our elevations, but that would be the only thing allowed.
And then I know another potential concern for some of the neighbors is, and we don't have it up there, but the pool on the rear, what kind of buffering, I've stayed at hotels where soccer tournaments come through and the kids are out horsing around, to hours of the night. What kind of buffering and noise abatement can you put on the pool that was shown up there? And is that something that's just on y'all's radar?
Well, one of the things is the intentional location of that pool and open space area. I mean, I hate to say you go to the path of least resistance, right. But as we've talked to all the adjoining owners, there are the adjoining owners there that want to do something different. And so, as you can, from our site plan, it's laid out in that way. We'll have the separation in place as well as fencing and plantings in that area.
And then you did say that you guys are progressing with a Hilton flag, is that correct?
The Hilton franchise has been applied for. I think that's what I'm allowed to say.
How far along are you guys in that process?
I couldn't say, and I don't know if we can say too much more with
that. All right. And then my last question is just goes to sort of the height and mass of the project. And you had touched on this some. What by existing right, what could you can you build there?
Okay. The existing zoning is R17 MF, and we talked with neighbors, and that district would allow up to 100 feet in height. However, to get that height, you'd have to step away from the property lines. So the max height we're asking for is 30 feet lower than what's currently allowed. Staff's point is that we're closer than they're comfortable with to that property line, which if Mike doesn't make us build that road, we're happy to shift the building. But to accommodate all things, that's the best we can really do.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. We have a number of questions, so let's just start with Ms. Mayfield and work our way around.
Yes.
Ms. Mayfield.
Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. Brown, I'll come back with some questions for you. Ms. Keplinger, I would like to get a clearer understanding when we, council, as well as planning staff, has put not only a focus but also intention and financial dollars behind ensuring that we have diverse communities. I'm really trying to understand why in this conversation that I'm hearing from the potential impact of the neighbors. I have a concern that I'm not hearing enough regarding the residents. So I would like to get a better understanding of why staff would support a development that would displace current residents to create a development of potentially hotel space, but also would like to get an idea, because I would seem to remember or recall that we have recently approved hotel development around this area. So I'm trying to get an understanding behind why this would be a project the staff would approve or support.
Well, I think that that's a complicated question, and I think the answer to it is that the staff responds mostly to the rezoning petitions that are put in front of us. I certainly understand the concerns about the people like Ms. Cubey and her family that are that would have to relocate because of this. And hopefully there would be some other options in the area. You are correct. We have had several requests for rezonings over the years. We've had some that have been denied in the South Park area for hotels too. So I think from our perspective, we are responding basically to the request that's before us now. And in terms of the uses that are there, the market more provides for where the displacement of those folks and for where they may go in the future. Now, Mr. Brown may have some additional responses to that particular question as in terms of how they are going to deal with the folks that are living there and working with them if this property is redeveloped.
I would share that this sends a very clear mixed message as far as what our plan and our goal is when we're looking at trying to diversify. So I will have challenges with considering moving forward with this type of development. But thank you for those responses. Mr. Brown, I want to make sure that I heard you correctly, because you mentioned that this particular, to upfit this building could be a very costly project. So am I to assume that maintenance and upgrades had not been maintained over the years in order to make sure that this building pretty much stayed competitive in the market? I understand it's an older building, but I want to make sure that we've had the opportunity to maintain adequately this particular building since we have current residents. I can understand if this was a building that did not have residents, but if we're looking at current home, but all the discussion that I've heard up to this point has really been in the vein of this decision has been made and we're talking to the neighbors opposed to the residents. I would like to know if this property has been maintained, but I would also really like to know what's the displacement plan, if any, for these current residents.
Well, I'd point out that this is not a subsidized housing situation. This is a situation where the property owners have owned for many years and have maintained rents at an affordable level so that people can live there. I think what I was saying is it is to a point, and I think I heard the residents say that this is maintained well and everyone that lives there is happy. It is at a point where it requires reinvestment in the site. And so as the owners have looked at it, there are currently 40 units there. The current zoning would allow us to do about 65. Just as a frame of reference, the most recent multifamily zonings I've handled in South Park where we're developing new product are 60 to 100 units per acre. The current density there would be 10 to 12 units per acre. If we were to redevelop the site to just have the 10 to 12 units per acre, it would really be cost prohibitive for most anyone to live there at that density. It's the market driver. In order to, if we were going to include an affordable component, there would have to be enough units to really offset that, which would be several hundred units. And that, as you probably know, meets with an awful lot of opposition. So I think it's a function. I do think the property's been maintained, well maintained. I think that's why the residents would love to continue staying there. But at 50 years, it is the point where something different has to happen. If it were to stay at that low of a density, again, it would be cost prohibitive for for most to live there.
And part two of my question, what is the plan for displacement for the current residents?
You know, I would have to consult with the property and the management to let you know that plan. There's, you know, at this point we're going through the rezoning. I think probably leases are not being renewed for the next year, but I don't know their discussions with the current residents on whether they're going once their lease terms end.
So for full disclosure and transparency, from what I'm hearing this evening, it would be extremely difficult for me to consider even the idea of this particular development without having some very clear questions answered, because we had, as a council, just in the last few years, have made major investments in partnerships with how we move forward with housing development and multifamily. So we need to look at, would this possibly, in another 20 years, create an environment where we're looking to do the investments that we're doing in some other areas to try to identify housing options. It's not the position of whether or not this is workforce or affordable housing. It's affordable housing right now for the people that live there. And if we're talking about moving those people out and them taking the chance to possibly identify other housing, I think we really need to consider how we want our city to grow.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Phipps, did you have anything?
Yeah, okay. I didn't want to usurp anyone's time.
No, we're just going to roll. Move around.
Yeah, the plan, the current South Park plan was, I guess, approved back in 2000. So in view of the many approvals and rezoning activity we've had, it would seem that it's about time for another, I guess, relook at the South Park area plan, in as much as it's 14 years old now. And I would say that it's almost too old for meaningful application, even though we've said that the plan, I mean, what this petitioner wants to do is inconsistent with that plan, but given what has taken place, it seems that the activity has really outgrown that plan. So what is the, do we have a timeline on when that plan is going to be revisited, the South Park small area plan?
That is something that we have talked about, and I would like to turn that question over to our director, Deborah Campbell, for her to
She didn't know. She didn't know.
I see. Good evening. I didn't want to usurp Mr. Smith.
No, you go ahead. And then.
Okay. I thought you was going to help me, but okay.
I'm happy to. We met last week to have this very discussion, and it's going to require a formal application from somebody in the area to get the ball rolling. Some of the neighborhood leaders are going to get that on file so that we can begin the process to figure out if we will do a full plan review around the edges, or how to integrate all the growth.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. In all seriousness, we know that there are lots of areas that need area plans, that we need to update those plans. We go through a process we call an area plan assessment, and we do that every 2 to 3 years. We currently have 15 areas ahead of South Park because we use a lot of data, both social, economic, transportation, lots of things that indicate to us that we need to put planning resources in these geographies. We are thinking about, though, that maybe we need to do something a little different than just having the full scale, the normal, unfortunately, 9 to 12 months, sometimes 24 months, sometimes even longer than that. Prosperity Hucks, for example, area plan process. So we are looking at some more innovative ways that we might be able to do area plans so that we can accelerate the process of looking at these geographies, because we have a number on our list, and I'll just name a couple. Valentine, for example, the Cotswold area. Lots of change that's happening in these areas. I-85, Sugar Creek, North Tryon, Graham Street area. That's been on our list for a couple of years. that we think we need to address. We just recently got requests for something, again, along West Boulevard, to go back into Greer Heights, to go back into Druid Hills. So we again, we're looking at this. We think, Mr. Phipps, I know that was a long way to say that it's probably a year away before we can truly focus on trying to address a plan, an area plan for South Park, because again, we have so many demands for our resources right now.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, sir. Mr. Howard.
Mine was simple. After Mr. Mayfield's comments, I may make a couple more. The first one was about the fence. What do you have to do to actually get what you need to address raising the fence?
I just talked with Mr. Estes about that this morning. I'll need to consult with staff and see if we can do it as an optional provision. If we can, we would pursue that route, or if we would have to go get a variance to go over 8 feet.
Tammy, what do they need to go over 8 feet?
That's something I'll have to look into. I was trying to wrap my brain as that question came up, and I know that there are height requirements, restrictions in the front yard. I'm not sure about the rear, so we'll be checking into that and working with them.
So what I'm hearing is that you guys are open to pursuing the height of the fence to help with the neighbors. The other thing was simple. He asked for a stop sign. So what needs to happen, Mike and Tammy, to help them with the stop sign at Hazleton?
Hazleton.
The best advice I can give is if I can maybe get with that citizen, which I guess we've got the contact information where I'll contact that citizen and we'll work that through our public service process.
Just wanted to make sure that was on the record.
Yep.
And then this road, Mike, while you're up, so I heard the fact that you'd like to see this partial of the road go in. I heard Colin say that if you require it. So where are we on it? Is it required or not required?
So technically, it's not required by anything. There's no ordinance that says you have to do this. It's my best advice to you as council that in order to make this petition contribute to what we're trying to do in South Park, that it include a street. It's not required.
I think a contribution to the road network would be helpful.
And it's shown on our plan.
All right, thank you. The last thing is I'm not going to repeat anything that Ms. Mayfield said, but I will say that there are resources in the community that I would hope you guys would tell the residents about, including the fact that right across the street there's a senior building called Springcroft, the apartment building across the street actually, it looks, the one that Bank of America developed actually has 32 units that they co-developed with the Housing Authority, and they're workforce units. I don't think they're public housing. So there's some resources that if you're not familiar with it, I'm sure the staff can help with. So I'll let you, Ms. Mayfield, figure out that whole package thing, but at the very least, I hope that you give them resources about what is offered in the community and in that area. Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, sir. Ms. Lyles?
Thank you. I wanted to address the issues around the plan that Ms. Campbell referenced, maybe a year out or maybe even more. But more importantly, I wanted to talk specifically around that road issue, and it's more for the staff, Mike, Mr. Davis, if you don't mind. In 2000, when we rezoned South Park Mall so that it could double in size, I remember the traffic being horrendous, and after we made all of those improvements along Fairview Road, Colony Road, that was 2000, 15 years ago, and we are now in a situation where we're in a very robust development period in South Park. We're very fortunate to have it as one of our 5 employment centers. I think the challenge that I have is that the recommendation has been to get this roadway built through a reservation of land and to move it around the Sharon Corner Shopping Center and kind of through there. But when I look in our zoning or look at maps of the area, I really would challenge us to say one of the issues that we've had in South Park is we have a number of streets that do not connect. There is not a grid system among the residential properties anywhere between Sharon Road and Park South, all the way to Park Road, actually. Very little connectivity. And we've kind of let that just happen. One of the questions that I think about, if you're on Walden Court or Hazleton, and I have to say I walk that area a lot, if you're the only person that's having to give something to get the connectivity, that places a tremendous burden on a few. But if the South Park area actually would look at all of the unconnected roads and try to do something to connect them in a way that built more of a grid system, I think we'd have easier traffic facilitation, and we wouldn't be reserving sites coming through these developments that we're doing because there's the opportunity versus the intent to kind of get to that place. So I would like to ask that we look at the system in a way that actually doesn't bring us back to a 14-year decision, which is where we are. When we're building a city like this, we ought to be building something a lot more long-term. And I would like to see if the staff could bring choices in the long-range plan around how South Park could actually be built. So that's my first point. The second point is that the neighbors on Park South Drive have talked specifically about the opportunity that we had to connect South Park to the area where Piedmont Row is down to Fairview. And then you've got a two-lane road across Fairview going south that is pretty much all residential after you pass the Ivy, I believe. So there's some concern for me in terms of how we're doing all of this as opportunity presents itself without intentionality again. I don't know if there is a response to that now, but I think we've got to look beyond 14 years, and we've got to look beyond just an opportunity.
Yeah, I have two thoughts, and I'll take them in reverse order. No doubt there have been missed opportunities, and I think I think we've known for a while that we have connectivity policies for a good reason. They are helpful. It is becoming very evident in South Park of the need for them as the development pressure continues. So it's not to say we haven't been trying before. It's just becoming more and more apparent of the critical importance of doing it well. The other, to your first point about opportunities to study other connections, I think that's a great suggestion. And what I would just point out is I'll actually be back here in front of you next Monday night to appropriate funding from a prior zoning petition that does get, it's a $366,000 contribution that does give us the ability to begin to do some transportation planning work in the area. A lot of that is intended to be used around the Carnegie area, but I don't believe there's any limitation on our ability to begin doing some of that staff analysis on roadway network specifically. So I think that's a good opportunity for us to get us some things to begin looking at.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Fowler.
Yeah. Colin, how many families will be displaced if this is approved?
I know that there are 40 units on site. I don't know how many are occupied. They're mostly currently occupied, but the leases are expiring.
You know, a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down, and possibly that spoonful could be helping with relocation, because you are displacing families who have lived there for a while, and there is a fairness, and you do have in the community the intelligence to know where there are places that they could afford that would be similar to where they're living. And I think the council would appreciate it if you expect it to be approved.
There are not many people that know other options better than the folks at Allen Tate, so we'll certainly look at that and
That's
discuss.
what I'm saying.
Okay, Ms. Kinsey.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Brown, I'm looking at the site plan, and I can't tell exactly where that proposed road goes through and how close it is to the hotel. I honestly think we're stretching a bit, Mr. Davis, to even suggest that we should do that.
We're working hard. The issue, and Mike can help here, is that it's got to line up with the existing signal. So that kind of sets the point here.
Well, but that's what I thought that was a road. But I know it's a small site plan, so sometimes.
So this is essentially the street connection through, and could ultimately be made here.
How wide is the road?
If I may, Councilmember Kinsey, you may be reacting to the same thing I did when I saw this plan, which is this doesn't look a lot like a street. And so we've been working with the petitioner on how to...
anything like a street.
Right. It doesn't have sidewalks. The driveway treatments are not the way we want them. So we've had specific meetings around how that gets to be made more like a street. So you will begin to see planting strips, sidewalks, driveway treatments. The parking will be handled differently. The alignment's going to look different. We're in a period where that plan couldn't be submitted for display here is how I understand that. But going forward between now and the zoning committee, that would be depicted a little differently.
May I continue?
Yes, ma'am.
That just, to me, just looks like we're taking more of the property for the sidewalk, the planting strip. I mean, obviously, I support those amenities, but I just have a real problem with us trying to make this happen. Because to me, it looks like it's right at the front door of the hotel. And if this road is traveled as much as everybody seems to think we're going to have it traveled just because it will alleviate traffic somewhere else, I think that would not be really very good. So I would like to see us plan a road somewhere else.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Autry.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, sir.
I would just add that if we're going to be talking about small area plans, there were 2 small area plans recommended in the East Side Strategies Plan approved in 2003 that we don't have yet.
We're working on it.
I know.
So it won't be next year.
Wow. Mr. Driggs.
Yeah, it just feels to me like, in a way, there are 2 conversations going on here tonight, and one of them has to do with the circumstances of the current residents and the fact that some affordable housing could be lost. I think it's a valid concern to raise. The other one is the land use decision that we make for zoning, and I think a clear separation is needed. Maybe it would be helpful to me personally for the city attorney to brief me a little more, but I get uneasy when I see a burden being placed on the petitioner to somehow address what are housing and neighborhood development type of issues that probably are more our problem, frankly. I don't see, at least in my limited experience here, that it is the responsibility of the petitioner to solve this issue. I mean, it is a problem, but I don't think it's his problem, is my feeling. And I just want to make sure that we have a proper zoning conversation and that we make our decision properly on those terms, and then that we think about the circumstances of the people who live there and see what we can do about that. Thank you.
I understand. Mr. Austin?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you for your comments, but I think our charge is to make sure that all people in Charlotte are treated equally and fairly. I'm always concerned when we're having development and we're displacing people, and it doesn't sound like we have any sort of real plan for those individuals that are there. Not so much about affordable housing and those types of things, but how we're treating people. And that's what I like about Charlotte. We know how to treat people, and we try to treat people well. So my comments around the petitioner and how they're treating those individuals. We can't guarantee that there's going to be affordable housing. We can't guarantee those things. But what we can guarantee is how we treat those individuals. And I think that's the charge of council many times, to make sure that we're treating people well, and that we do want development. We do want your petitioner to make money, and probably will. That's a good thing. But we also need them to treat other people well. And that would be my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Austin. Ms. Kelly? I'm kidding. And so, since we're moving around.
Let's go right up around the room now.
Yeah, Bailey Patrick. We'll continue. Mr. Smith, and then I want to say something about it, too.
I'm going to stay out of the affordable debate. I have a question about the road. As we project the likelihood of when that may occur, are we looking at a 10, 15, 20, like what is a reasonable estimate on the horizon? Because my fear is, to sort of piggyback on Ms. Kinsey, my fear is that the road may not actually be built while the useful life of the hotel is there, and we're impacting the site plan almost for naught.
Sure. My understanding is that the Sharon Corners development, which is really kind of the key to pulling this off in the future, enjoys recently signed long-term leases. I don't know the duration of those leases, and I think that development, at least to the layman, appears to be in good shape. So I can't put a number to it, but it's clearly a long-term investment. But I would just suggest a different way to look at that is if you forego this opportunity, it becomes a chicken egg, and you'll never get out of that.
You done, Mr. Smith?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I can appreciate what you're saying. The one thing that grabbed my attention was when Mr. Brown talked about giving up, was it 30% of the site?
And that was rough, but
roughly to this right-of-way. And one of our interests, among many, is the whole idea of creating taxable land uses. And so if you're able to relieve some of the compression on that space by either expanding further the size of the facility or moving it, certainly we can tax land where buildings are and land that you own and not where the roads are. I hear a lot of I understand that a lot of conversations are taking place, which I appreciate, and you've heard a lot from everybody on the dais had something to say about this one. So I know you guys are going to keep working on it, and unless there are any other issues, I would entertain a motion to close.
Second.
A motion from Mr. Howard, second by Ms. Mayfield. Any opposed? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Great. Thank you, everybody, for being here on that one. The next item is item 25. It is petition 2014-60. It is in the City Council District of Miss Kinsey, District 1. It is by Day Hickson for a change in zoning for approximately 0.46 acres, located on the east side of North McDowell Street between East 25th Street and East 36th Street, from R5, which is single-family residential, to UR1 conditional, urban residential conditional. Staff recommends approval of this petition upon the resolution of outstanding issues. I would note that we have one speaker signed up in favor, that being Day Hickson, and I think Ms. Keplinger has a presentation.
Yes, sir. This, as you can see from the map, this is about a half-acre site on McDowell between 35th and 36th Street. What I think is most important is this aerial. It tells a story that started in 1914, a story of 3 houses built on 2 lots. And they have been there since 1914. In accordance with our current standards for this area, which is for the R5 district, you cannot subdivide these lots so that you could get 1 house on each lot. Day Hickson has come in and asked for a request to rezone this to UR1CD. The proposed request would allow 3 lots to be developed, 1 house on each lot. So that part will be cut off through a subdivision process if the rezoning is approved. You can see again how the lots would be divided. It's single-family residential to urban residential conditional use. The density is going to be 7 dwelling units per acre. It's a little bit more than what is allowed by the future land use plan, which actually recommends 6 dwelling units per acre, and that's the Blue Line Extension 36th Street Transit Station area plan. But the use is consistent with what is happening in the area, and like I said, it has been there for a very long time, and staff feels that this is appropriate for approval upon the resolution of the outstanding issues.
Thank you, Ms. Keplinger. We have one speaker signed up in favor, and that is Day Hickson. Hi, how are you? Since there are no speakers signed up against you, you have 3 minutes.
Okay. I was told just to sign up if you had any questions.
Okay.
I really don't have anything to say.
That's a fine presentation.
I thought after what we just went through, you might like that.
Any questions? Ms. Kinsey has a question.
And I've looked at this map and I can't quite tell. Are you just subdividing for the 3 houses, or are you going to add a house?
I'm not doing anything except changing it so that right now there are 3 houses, and I'm making it have 3 property lines. I'm not doing anything. I'm not developing it. I'm not doing it. Is that what you're asking?
Okay.
It will be 3 houses on 3 lots.
Okay.
She's not adding anything.
And there could be no more houses?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Okay. That's all I needed to know and make sure. Good.
Move to approve.
Second.
First was a motion to close the public hearing, and I think there was a second from Mr. Howard, and the motion was made by Ms. Kinsey. And all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the next item is item 26, and it is petition 2014-61. It's in City Council District 4, Mr. Phipps' district. It is by the Roman Catholic Diocese of Charlotte for a change in zoning for approximately 10 acres located on the south side of Southern Road between Old Concord Road and Sandburg Avenue from institutional CD to institutional CD site plan amendment SPA. Staff recommends approval of this petition upon resolution of outstanding issues. And I would note that with respect to this petition, we have one speaker signed up in favor, that being Mr. David Powlin. Mr. Powlin, please approach the podium.
Presentation.
And we'll have a presentation as well from Ms. Keplinger. Once she's done, you'll have 3 minutes for your comments. Ms. Keplinger.
Just to orient you, this is University City Boulevard, this is Souther, this is UNC Charlotte. Most of us are familiar with the Crescent rezoning from 2012, so I'll point that out as well. This is the site that is up for rezoning tonight. It's approximately 10 acres. It's developed with a Roman Catholic church. It's the St. Thomas Aquinas Church. There are multifamily uses to the east and multifamily to the west. And then you have University Hills Baptist Church, which is located to the south. In terms of the request tonight, I want to start out by telling you what's allowed there now. I believe it was 1995, there was a rezoning that allowed about 40,000 square feet of building area to be built on this site. There was a variance that was granted for a 42-foot buffer to the adjacent between the adjacent residential properties, and there was a building height of 28 to 61 feet. The request today is basically to add to the square footage to allow up to about 71,000 square feet. The building heights will be limited to 2 stories, with the exception of the church steeple, which does go up to 61 feet tall. They prohibited schools and general education uses, so this will clearly be for a church use. They have some buildings on the site. There's a proposed building in this location. The main building, the existing main building is to remain. These buildings may actually be redeveloped, torn down, or just redeveloped. There is a one-way existing road or proposed road in this area, and this will require a small portion of the buffer to be reduced by 25%, which is allowed by the ordinance, but it's only for that small section where that one-way driveway will exist. In terms of the adopted land use plan, it does recommend institutional uses for the subject property based on that 1995 rezoning. So the request is consistent with the Northeast District Area Plan. The issues are technical in nature, and we are supporting it based on the resolution of those issues.
Thank you, Ms. Keplinger. Mr. Powell, welcome again. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you, and I'll be short. I am really just here again representing the diocese and to answer any questions that you all may have. And I also have Father Jason Christian from St. Thomas Aquinas Church who can answer questions if need be as well.
Okay. Hey, Mr. Phipps.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. It looks as if the community this particular project has been well received by the community. I'm not aware of any objections to it. I did have a question of clarification that I wanted, though, in terms of the proposed request details, and it says like a note prohibiting a school or general education use allowed on the site. I would assume that excludes like routine Sunday school and Bible study activities.
What we would interpret that to mean is an educational type facility for school children. It would not exclude Bible studies and educational church-related activities.
Thank you.
Would it include residential uses?
Residential as far as
rooming houses, anything of that nature? Would people be living at the site?
No. No, the proposed uses are simply for the expansion of the church and meeting rooms. There might be public uses of the meeting rooms, but at this point, it's just to expand the services the churches provide.
All right. Any further questions from the council? There was a motion by Mr. Howard. Is there a second? By Mr. Austin. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you so much for coming down, sir. The next item is item 27, and it is in City Council District 1, Ms. Kinsey's district. It is petition number 2014-63 by Pulte Home Corporation for a change in zoning for approximately 2.68 acres located on the south side of Atherton Street between Euclid Avenue and Marshall Place from R5, single-family residential, and B2, general business, to UR2 CD, urban residential, conditional. Staff does not support this petition in its current form. I would note that we have speakers signed up for and against, and I'd welcome Ms. Keplinger's presentation before we get to the speakers.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, ma'am.
This request is located on property that is situated between Marshall, Euclid, and Atherton. South Boulevard is located here. This is the current zoning map, so you can see we have a lot of TOD along the South Transit line. And then you get back over into the Dilworth neighborhood, and you see all the yellow, which is the single-family residential. As I said, this is between, let me point out the streets again. This is Atherton, this is Marshall, and this is Euclid. The property is divided so that you can see the single-family homes that are located on one side of it and the non-residential uses on the other side. That's also the division line for the two area plans that I'll discuss in just a minute. This request is single-family residential and general business to urban residential conditional to allow 37 single-family attached units at the density of 13.81 units per acre. Now, I want to stop with saying that and tell you that the petitioner, it is our understanding that the petitioner is going to be showing you a new site plan tonight that addresses, that he believes addresses many of the issues that we have outstanding on this petition. One of them, as I recall, is, or one of the changes is this is now 39 units, so the density is just a little bit higher than what I'm showing here and what's in your staff analysis. If you recall, we cannot accept new site plans less than 4 weeks prior to the public hearing. So that is why the information in your staff analysis is based on this plan. The building height here was limited to 36 feet in height, and as you can see, a lot of the buildings that were shown here had their ends facing along Marshall and Euclid, and that was one of the concerns that staff had. These were the elevations that were submitted. This was the rear that would be along the street fronts, along Euclid and along Marshall and along Atherton in some places. The adopted future land use plan for this property is actually, as I mentioned previously, divided into two sections. The major portion is within the Dilworth Land Use and Streetscape Plan that was approved in 2006, and it recommends single-family residential at 4 dwelling units per acre for the majority of the site. The other part of the site is within the New Bern Station Transit Station Area Plan, which was adopted in 2008, and it recommends transit-oriented development, and if residential is to go there, it's a minimum of 15 dwelling units per acre. I wanted to point out the New Bern Street Transit Station so you can see the location proximity to this. I also wanted to point out that recently we had a rezoning for weekly homes on this site. It was Petition 2014-01, which was approved for townhomes. In terms of this request, it's inconsistent with the Dilworth Land Use and Streetscape Plan recommendation. It's consistent with the land use for the New Bern Transit Station Area Plan, but not with the density. There are outstanding issues that relate to the land use. There are we believe, significant site design issues, And then there are some other technical issues that go along with this plan. For those reasons, staff does not support this petition in its current form.
Okay, thank you so much. We have 2 speakers signed up in favor of the petition and 2 against. In favor of the petition, we have Scott Stone and Mark Moffett. You gentlemen will have a combined 10 minutes for your comments, and the 2 speakers signed up against the project. The proposal are Walt Geyer and John Gresham. You will also have 10 minutes. And Mr. Stone, you all will have a 2-minute rebuttal.
Gotcha. Okay. Mayor Pro Tem, Council, good evening. We, as Ms. Kepler mentioned, this has been an iterative process going back and forth quite a bit with the community, with DCDA, with the neighbors, and so this project has evolved over the last few months. We've had several meetings. We've incorporated a lot of their plans, and I'm representing Pulte Homes, who is the petitioner. We wanted to share with you, spend most of the time here tonight, sharing with you the new plan that we plan to submit this week, which is the earliest chance we had to resubmit a new plan. This plan represents a lot of the comments that we've received from the community. So I'll just go through pretty quickly. This is the site location with a little different look to it. This is in a transitional area. It is directly behind Mac's Speed Shop, and it is behind. You've got commercial on one side, multifamily. I'm sorry, you've got commercial on one side. You've got single family on the other side of it, and it is 1/4 of a mile away from the New Bern station. This is, again, Ms. Keplinger's already mentioned this a little bit, where we are. And this is the new site plan that we will submit. Staff has seen this. They've not reviewed it formally, but we've run some of this by them to get their input, to make sure things are done as they've requested, make sure it meets certain city requirements. We've also mentioned, it's worth noting, this is the David Weekley site right here, which is, by now, the council has already kind of set a precedence that this is a good block for for a higher density in the townhouse development. So given that buffer kind of between the commercial and the single family, we're kind of carrying it forward down the rest of the block. We're proposing UR2 because that's what the Weekley project was. It makes sense for this site, but also we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. The difference between this and the Weekley project, though, and I mention this only because it's fresh in your minds because it was only a few weeks ago, it's less dense than the Weekley project. Theirs was over 20 per acre. This one is about 14.5 per acre. We're saving a lot more existing trees. We have more open space. We have a lot of on-street parking, more so than they did. And we have more on-site parking as well. So this project is not creating more parking issues. This is 39 units. It's a little bit different than we had before, but as you'll see, the biggest issue here that's different than what you have, and I do have some site plans if it's helpful to anybody to take a closer look at it. All the units face the street. As we met with the community, we met with DCDA, the neighbors, that was one of their very biggest issues, is every unit should face the street. When we first were developing the ideas of how to lay this out, we had 20-foot driveways rear-loaded behind every unit, and because that site kind of pinches, you'll see that it kind of pinches right here, it just gets very narrow. It's very difficult to make that work with those driveways. The last iteration we went through, we ended up taking out some of the driveways, which is allowed by the ordinance, but it ends up allowing us to fit those in so they all can face the front. So that was a big issue for the community, and so this is something that we've been able to address. One of the other issues that was addressed early on is there's no connections onto Marceau Place. So those alleys that connect in are only going through from the Euclid side. Just really quickly, I want to highlight the tree save areas in green. And these are basically the canopy sizes of some of the very large trees that we're saving. We talked through with staff of how we can rework the sidewalks of the plan so we could work around some existing trees to save them. Again, something that was a very important issue for the neighborhood. And so we're very pleased with that. This is an example of one of the biggest tree that we're able to save right there. So we're also adding 30 on-street parking spaces. For anyone who goes to Max, they know that on-street parking is a big issue on Euclid. They're parking there no matter what. There is a little bit of on-street parking on the other side, but it's tough. So this project has 2-car garages, and 15 of the units have 20-foot driveways, in addition to the 30 on-street parking spaces. Also, this new plan has some 2 and 3 units buildings versus the 4 and 5. It's going to help it feel a little less dense, and it's going to feel a little bit more open. This is what you have there now. This is the corner of Euclid and Atherton. So this is basically what's there now. This is what would be there in place of it. I want to note that the rendering that you see there incorporates what we attempted to do was a Dilworth type of feel. It's got more of a craftsman style as best as we could with a townhome. But originally, Pulte had suggested brick and masonry, different stone effects was the original concept. These materials were brought up to try to address the community concerns. This is a view of the existing area on Euclid. And you can see this is the on-street parking, the very little amount that exists behind Max. And we would be adding on-street parking all along, several spaces throughout Euclid. This is along Marshall Place. These are all rental properties currently. And this would be the view basically at the corner of Marshall Place and Atherton. You can see to scale basically, it's a rendering to give you a sense of it, but that is the trees, the scale of the trees we're trying to save to give it a community feel. Those trees are very Dilworth feeling, and we want to try to preserve that. As Ms. Kepling already mentioned, this is overlaying 2 different area plans. New Bern calls for TOD. The Dilworth plan calls for no increase in density on this parcel, on these parcels. However, the area plan also does include encouraging different types of housing, and the area plan also for Dilworth includes increasing density where it makes sense. And as a community, we've continued to seek higher density close to the transit plans, and this being a transitional block, essentially, we felt it was a good use and a good proposed project. It is already consistent. Staff had cited about 21 outstanding issues. We believe that 19 of those are already addressed in this revised plan that we're going to submit this week. So hopefully a lot of those issues will go away. The 2 issues that will remain outstanding is the consistency of the density with the Dilworth plan. And staff would like us to have brick and stone elevations and not the siding and the type of changes that we've made from the original proposal. So that's something we're going to have to decide. Are we going to try to go with staff's request? Are we going to try to meet what the neighborhood has wanted? It's something we're going to have to decide, or Pulte's going to have to decide. So that is, I'm sure there'll be lots of questions. Or you have questions now?
Mr. Moffett, you have about 2.5 minutes.
2.5 minutes. My name is Mark Moffett, and I own the property at 2412 Marshall Place. As well, I'm an original Charlottean. I'm a commercial real estate broker with Commercial Real Estate Services, and I represent all the residential owners in the Pulte petition. We have been, over the last 4 or 5 years, looking to see what we can do with our investment properties here. We are the only properties in this area that back up to commercial properties. Everybody else, further down Idle Way, backs up to residential houses. So we've bared the traffic, the dogs, and all the other issues with the commercial properties. And what we like about what Pulte is presenting to us is that this Marshall Place townhouses are serving as a buffer, transitioning from the commercial to the multifamily, their project, to single family along Marshall project itself. And that the recent approval of the weekly multifamily on the other end of our Marshall Place is a testament to the type of development that the city is looking for the transit overlay districts. So we are wholeheartedly endorsing Pulte's rezoning petition.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate that, Mr. Moffett. We have 2 speakers signed up against this petition, Walt Geyer and John Gresham. If you gentlemen could come down, you will have a combined 10 minutes as well.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, ma'am.
I mentioned in our dinner meeting that there are protest petitions on this rezoning case and that the sufficiency is yet to be determined.
Okay. Thank you.
What was your second point?
The sufficiency of the protest petitions has yet to be determined.
It takes us a little while to go through those.
They'll work on it. Okay, who we got here?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. My name is Walt Geyer, and I live at 2421 Marshall Place, which is across the street from the land being proposed for rezoning. Tonight I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my neighbors on Marshall Place, Atherton Street, and Ideal Way. Many of those neighbors are here tonight, and I'd like to ask them to raise their hands to be identified and show their support, mostly up there. I'm here to say we oppose the rezoning and subsequent proposed development of 39 townhomes by Pulte. We have submitted a rezoning protest petition signed by 10 homeowners surrounding the rezoning area, and we have support of all other surrounding neighbors. While the developer has introduced a new plan to you tonight with townhomes facing the street, our community still opposes this rezoning. As referenced in our protest petition, we oppose the rezoning request because it conflicts with the Dilworth land use and streetscape plan adopted by Charlotte City Council in 2006. This area is within the scope of that Dilworth land use plan, and that plan states that it should remain R5. The requested rezoning area and surrounding area are mostly single-family homes, different than the pictures you saw there, which were the small commercial properties that they displayed. The Dilworth plan is working today, and we're seeing changes on Marshall and Atherton confirming the plan is working. There are 3 land parcels on Marshall and Atherton that have recently been redeveloped by 2 different home builders. All 3 of these parcels have been developed into single-family homes that match the craftsman and bungalow-style homes of the neighborhood, and 2 of those homes are already under contract. The plan is working, and we should not abandon the plan. Allowing high-density redevelopment of this portion of Dilworth not only conflicts with the Dilworth plan, but it changes the face of our neighborhood. The plan was created and approved by City Council to protect this area from haphazard development. Furthermore, it is proposed that this be a build-as-sold development, meaning the developer will clear and prepare the land, then one set of townhomes would be built to produce a model home. No further construction would occur until these certain thresholds of townhomes are sold, and then they would be built in small pods or 2 to 3 units, as they referenced earlier. This essentially leaves a 2.7 acre vacant lot where single-family homes and mature oak trees stood. My neighbors and I would be left looking from our front yards and porches across red clay and dirt to South Boulevard traffic for 3 years or longer. And that timing is based upon information from the developer. While the developer indicates the land would be landscaped with new trees, they do not mention the replacement trees will be 3 to 4 inches in diameter, providing little to no protection similar to the 30, 40, and 50-inch diameter trees that exist today, and significantly altering our streetscape. We would be left with a view similar to the one you see here. And this is actually a picture that represents a project that Pulte did in Fort Mill, where they created townhomes and kind of raised the land, and this is what we'll be left with until they sell all the townhomes. The surrounding, we are also aware of the rezoning petition, the David Weekley project that was referenced and approved. It does include the development of higher density townhomes, but occurs on the corner of the neighborhood. The surrounding neighbors view this as an acceptable buffer into the neighborhood, even though the rezoning was not consistent with the Dilworth plan. However, any further rezoning to support higher density is no longer a transition or buffer, but a complete intrusion into our neighborhood. After watching the approval for the David Weekley development, the neighbors want to ensure our voice is heard on this petition. We have organized as a community and openly discussed this proposal to come to a consensus of opposition. We've worked with the Dilworth Community Development Association and their Land Use Committee to ensure the immediately impacted neighbors' concerns align with the interest of the broader Dilworth community, and they do. As mentioned previously, there are 3 new homes that have been built on Marshall and Atherton, and they all fall within that protest buffer. Both of the builders signed the protest petition because they believe this proposal will diminish the value of their investment homes, and additionally have indicated this would steer them away from future development into this corner of Dilworth. We all know this area is in high demand, and we should not settle for a proposal that conflicts with an existing Dilworth plan. Any future development should align with the plan, and we know there's interest in developing this area in a way that does. I'd like to quickly read have a letter on letterhead from a developer, a home builder on 2501 Marshall Place, so one of the folks that signed the protest petition. They state, Cobalt DBS is a privately held small business that develops boutique single-family residences in urban neighborhoods. Currently, we are developing in Dilworth and will continue developing in Dilworth in 100% compliance with the Dilworth land use plan. So there we have confirmation that builders are interested in continuing to develop Dilworth in a way that's consistent with the plan that's in place. Couple of points I'd like to address from the developer's comments.
You got about 5 minutes, Mr.
Thank you.
And
Current homes are all rentals, and allowing the rezoning will improve the community is their perspective. I can tell you that the community there disagrees, and we're not opposed to seeing the area redeveloped, but we don't want it to deviate from the Dilworth plan. The developers also said that neighbors have expressed support for this project. We heard Mr. Moffett speak, but who these neighbors represent are the absentee landlords who currently own the homes being sold to Pulte, and they have no vested interest in the long-term development of the land. I'd just like to wrap it up by stating the Dilworth Land Use Plan governs the land. The plan dictates it should remain R5. The plan was approved in 2006, and the plan is working. We are here as a community to ask this council to vote against this plan and petition. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gresham.
Good evening, Council. I'm John Gresham. I'm on the DCDA, also on the land use. We voted 2 weeks ago to unanimously oppose this rezoning. Why? Contrary to the Dilworth plan. Very good plan. You did it. We did it as a neighborhood. So did the planning department. This is what they tell us should happen. And let's look at the conclusion of that plan, which you have continued to adopt. Dilworth is one of Charlotte's most historic and charming neighborhoods. Dilworth has retained much of its original character, has many assets of a good neighborhood and considerable diversity. This is a small area of Dilworth because young folks have moved back in. It is resurgent. 3 new homes in the $6,000 to $7,000 range have been built on these 3 streets within the last year. What does it say? The desirable characteristics have put Dilworth in the unique position of balancing the pressure for new development with the conservation of the existing neighborhood. This will impact that existing neighborhood. This will impact the people who have come in and taken a corner of Dilworth and now made it a much better place. Second point, this notion that this project will be developed in sections, and we were told at our last land use meeting that there'll be 4 units built at one time. 1 as a model and then another 3. And then when those are sold, there'll be more, and then there'll be more. Think about this kind of development in a neighborhood where there are now 3 streets where there is solid residential development and people moving in and making that again a part of Dilworth. That is not what this council anticipated when they did the Dilworth plan. So we're surprised that the protest petition has not yet been voted on or has not yet been approved, because we've understood that there is a solid neighborhood opposition. The only folks over there who are in favor of it are the absentee landlords who now see a chance to make some money. We think they can make as much money when some of these developers, some of these home builders who have come into this neighborhood and built $6,000 and $7,000 homes will use this land the same way. So we hope that when the protest petition is approved, that it won't just be 4 of you, it'll be all of you voting against this project. Thank you.
You meant 600,000 and 700,000.
600,000.
Okay.
Yes.
Otherwise, we were all going to go buy one tomorrow. I might take 3 tonight.
Oh, all right. We think you can get 16 on this property, so it's 600,000. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think we've sold most of them already.
We want your original price.
Yeah, right. 6,000.
600,000.
No, and I appreciate that, Mr. Gresham. Right. You have a minute, 18 seconds if there's anything else you all want to say.
Yeah, any questions for us?
We would take questions.
We'll get to that in a second. Mr. Stone and Mr. Moffett have a 2-minute rebuttal opportunity.
Couple comments, 2 minutes. A couple comments. One is that Pulte has gone out of the way to be collaborative with the community and has met with them many, many times, tried to address their comments, and why you've seen several iterations of the plan. And the biggest issues we heard from them were three: the facing the street, the trees, and essentially the look of the properties. All of those three have been addressed, and we still are being pushed back on. The density was not their big issue. It was those other three elements. That's why we've worked so hard to incorporate their input. Pulte, though, is not looking at coming in and doing something different than what Dilworth is. They're looking at being part of that Dilworth community and part of that fabric. It's just adding a different type of building product there. One of the things that was brought up in the presentation was trees. The trees, we're going out of our way to save as many trees as possible. There are some great old trees that are going to be saved, as well as a lot of new trees being put in, as is required by the landscape ordinance. There have been concerns by the neighbors in the past about the renters that are there now. So what you're hearing is they're opposed to this, but in hopes of something better may or may not come along, but they hope it will, but that's not what is being proposed. Some of the people that are here today representing the project, and there are some people here that are representing, that are in favor of the project, they just didn't sign up to speak. They've lived there. Some of them have owned the properties a long time. Some of them have raised their families there. So it's I think there's being a little bit of a disrespect to those folks who raised their families and were part of the Dilworth community for decades. And, I think that the Dilworth plan has a lot of elements to it. It is a broad plan that covers a huge part of the city. And this is a unique property, that it is a transitional property. It is between commercial and residential.
Okay. I think we get the gist of it, Mr. Stone. We appreciate you being here. I will defer to the district rep if she'd like to start. Otherwise, I've got Mr. Howard and Ms. Fallon.
Let's just start with Mr. Howard.
Okay, Mr. Howard.
My comments kind of jump around, so I'll tell you that ahead of time. I supported the weekly rezoning for a lot of reasons that I heard the resident, because it was on Ideal Way and on the corner of the community. And I remember us voting to put a really high-density building right where the Pat Hospital is now. That corner made a lot of sense to me. As you go down this street, I do start to have some concerns. So my first question is for staff. So you got these a couple of things going on. You have the commercial that is Max and the hospital and those things that front South Boulevard, and then you have the street. You have this block across from it. It seems like you want some type of multifamily to transition to single family, because I just, for the life of me, can't see single family lining up looking at the back of commercial. So what does that transition usually look like? And if it's happening somewhere else in Dilworth, I'm happy to be corrected. The next thing is that the Dilworth plan, and it looks like this area is covered by two different plans, calls for 5 units to the acre, but the New Bern plan calls for up to 15 units. Actually, it's encouraging 15 units per acre. I'd love to know where you guys come down on that. Are you splitting the difference? I mean, what are you doing? Because, if it is within a half a mile of the transit corridor, again, we have a policy that encourages density. So I'll start with that and then have some comments. So how are we dealing with transition from commercial to residential? How will we see that happening? Because single family doesn't seem like the ideal thing to look at the back of commercial. And then what are you dealing with? Where are you coming down on the density suggestions from both of the plans?
Well, Mr. Howard, those are really good questions, and I think that in response to the transition, when the New Bern Station transit station area plan was developed, I'm sure that there was a lot of discussion that was just in 2008, about where the boundary lines should be between the neighborhood and the transit-oriented development. And at that time, it was chosen that, for the most part, Euclid would be that boundary line with that one little section of the industrial properties that you saw in Mr. Stone's presentation. And I would estimate that the reason that those properties were not included in the residential portion were because of their very nature, because they were industrial in nature, they're warehousing. So I think that probably provided a natural boundary when that plan was developed to say, at this point, we're going to go to from Euclid and all the single-family residential. We're going to keep that single-family residential and protect the character of the Dilworth neighborhood. So,
But you're talking about the back side of this property, not the front side
Right.
along Euclid. So you're talking about the Marshall piece more than anything.
I'm going to use Mr. Stone's map. This section has the industrial buildings located on it, and this is the section that is in the Newbern Transit Station area plan. And that is the area that the density is proposed for a minimum of 15 units per acre. Okay. My assumption, again, is that when this plan was developed, that was included as part of the station area because of the nature of those land uses.
So in that situation, we're talking about, you still see what I'm saying, you're talking about 15 on that little piece and then 5 on the back side of it. That doesn't seem like a proper transition.
Well, I'm going to get to that one in just a second. When that station area plan was developed, this area was all part of the Dilworth area plan, and it was slated to protect the character of the residential area. Laura, do you have something to add?
This actually gets at exactly what we talked about on the Blue Line extension, kind of where you run into these neighborhoods that have some existing character and how you transition with this. I mean, it's the exact same conversation.
Yeah, I think just to add to what Tammy was talking about, and I'll start with the properties in the Dilworth plan that front onto Marshall Place. It's not uncommon for us to have properties in Charlotte that then back to commercial land, and that's what they do here. What is a little bit unusual is that you have this intervening street of Euclid Avenue. But we did, as we developed the station area plan, we were very intentional about protecting the neighborhood. One of the principles in the transit station area principles is the preservation of existing neighborhoods, and we did call for this area to actually not be included in the transit station area. And I have just, take me back, if you don't mind. But we did call for that area to remain out. Certainly, you do make a good point about that property that fronts on Atherton. It is a very unique parcel. Thank you. This parcel here that is uniquely placed behind the single-family homes. But just in general, to have a transition, even up and down the transit corridor where we do have requirements for height in the transit station area that require you to move gently from the lower heights that you find in single family to the greater heights and intensity you find in transit station areas. So this is a pretty typical situation that you see here.
Would you recommend single family? I guess you are. So the yellow is single family?
We do recommend single family or lower density housing in this area and preservation of the neighborhood.
Okay. Mr.
No.
Okay, bye. So the other thing I have is R5. The houses that have developed in the neighborhood, the newer houses, seems like those are a lot denser than R5.
They probably are larger homes, but but they're being built back on the original lots that were, and they are fitting into the R5 zoning. They're just physically larger homes than maybe the original homes that were there.
The only other thing I have is that we have this very interesting dynamic, and I've participated in a couple of them at my job, where you have these older neighborhoods that are seeing kind of this infill of the bigger houses and then this tension between the old and the new. And I've heard it here tonight. The folks that have been there for years waiting to actually get some investment out of their property compared to the people that moved in, actually, looking for the same quality they bought into. So I would hope that when you guys go back and you talk, neighborhood included, that everybody realizes that the folks that have been there for a long time have been waiting for this opportunity, and they deserve a right to find some investment, get some investment out of their property. So I hope over the next month there's some more talk about kind of what that tension and what that, and I mean, the policies are not helping a lot here. So how do we actually bring some compromise to this some kind of way? I think it's important in this conversation. And we'll hear it a lot more as these communities start to keep redeveloping.
Okay. Ms. Fallon?
I just wanted to know from the homeowners there that object, what do you envision going there, understanding something's going to go there?
Single-family housing.
No. Mr. Gresham, you want to come up to us? We got to get you on the record.
More than that. Who has the portrait? We see single-family housing there because, unlike some of your other places, Mr. Howard, there is a street there as a buffer. If you look at the houses right above that area, you see where the blue line juts up higher? Those are houses that have been built, and there's a fence between them and the blue area. If you build those houses facing inward, not on Euclid, that's where the back fence or wall will be. And there's a street between there and the other development. So I don't think your concerns are that likely to occur. We see single-family houses that are compatible with the other side of the street. And by the way, the people who own those houses don't live there. They're not long-time residents. They're long-time landlords. That's the difference between the people across the street who are now some long-term and others more recent actual residents. And that's what we want that area to be, where there can be more residents there.
Mr. Gresham, you know, we always have very spirited conversations. I'm still talking about the fact that whoever owned it.
Ms. Howard, Ms. Fallon had the floor.
Ms. Fallon, can I respond?
Can you? The general lady will yield.
Do I have a choice?
Gentle.
The gentle lady will yield.
Just to be clear, whoever owns it, owns it.
Yes.
So, I mean, you know, we don't know what the history of those families are, so let's just be fair. We don't know how they came into it. I'm still talking about the fact that single-family houses don't usually look into the back of commercial. That's all I'm really saying.
They're not going to be looking into it. They're going to be facing the other way. You got to understand that they will face toward their neighbors. You're not. The only people who will be facing toward those will be Mr. Pulte. If you look at his development, his townhouses face that area.
I got you. I got you.
Okay.
Ms. Fallon?
Yeah, Mr. Gresham, has anybody reached out to you, any builders or developers, to talk about it to you?
Yes.
They have. And
They
they're
have.
willing to build single-family houses?
Yes.
Of that price line?
Maybe a little less on that side of the street. Maybe they're only 400,000. I got my number right this time.
But it's single-family housing?
It's single-family housing.
More than one person, I hope?
I think there are 2 or 3 developers that are looking at that. And to point back, I don't think most of the homeowners over there, Mr. Howard, have ever lived there. I think those industrial folks bought that property as rental property.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fallon.
We have Mr. Phipps.
Yeah, I'm interested in looking at the picture again of the use of the current site, the commercial. If you could bring that picture back up here.
Yeah, it's up there, the little small.
I'm talking about the pictures with the trucks and things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, has any of that site been used for any maintenance facilities, or if you stored any petroleum products or other hazardous materials on that site or anything?
I think Mr. Pulte would have figured that out if that were the case. We're not aware of any on that. And actually what you're doing there is looking across Euclid to the other side there. So those are not, I don't think only one of those buildings is actually within the area. The ones with the trucks are not. They're on the other side of Euclid. They're not a part of this.
Yeah, they are all on, but this is the part of the New Bern Station plan. So this is already, I think, B2, and you don't see this from Marshall Place. What you see across from us are 10 homes, older homes built in the 40s that, need some maintenance, but still that's what we're looking at today. Not this. This is what the back of Taco Bell looks at.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
Second by Mr. Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you so much. The next item is item number 28, petition 2014-65. It is in the City Council District of Mr. Phipps, District 4, by Nasir Ahmad for a change in zoning for approximately 2.91 acres located on the east side of I-85 along John Adams Road near the intersection of Galloway Road and John Adams Road from RE3, which is a research zoning, to RE3 SPA site plan amendment. Staff recommends approval of this petition upon the resolution of outstanding issues. Ms. Keplinger. And by the way, I would note that there are no speakers signed up for this petition.
Motion closed.
But we have to get their presentation.
How about if I go straight to the consistency slide for you? I can, let me tell you that this is for about a 7,000 square foot banquet hall. The maximum building height is limited to 2 stories and 45 feet. There is an existing cell tower on the site, which you can see on the aerial. There's multifamily across the street that has been partially developed. This is an RE3 site plan amendment. The area plan calls for research uses, so it is consistent with the Northeast District Plan. There are technical issues that we feel will be resolved before the zoning committee meeting, and we are recommending approval upon those resolutions.
Did you say that a banquet hall was consistent with research uses?
It is a use that it's actually going to be eating, drinking, entertainment establishment type 2, and those are allowed in the research district.
All occurring inside the facility?
Yes. Well, in this case, there is a 900 square foot patio area, but it will have to comply with the type 2 regulations.
Okay. All right. Mr. Phipps.
So that was one of my questions. Will the hall have any outdoor use space aside from parking?
I'll go back to the site plan and I will show you they have just the small open terrace area that, like I said, is about 900 square feet.
That was the only question I had. I move to close the public hearing.
Second. Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you so much. The next item is item 29. It is petition number 2014-66. It is in the Council District of Ms. Kinsey, District 1. It's by Levine Properties Incorporated for a change in zoning for approximately 0.094 acres of existing right-of-way for St. Julian Street, located between Commonwealth Avenue and Independence Boulevard, from R5, which is a residential classification, to B1 PED, neighborhood business pedestrian overlay. Staff recommends approval of this petition. Ms. Kepler?
This has to be one of the smallest rezonings that I have dealt with in the time that I've been with the city. It is for approximately 1/10 of an acre of land. And there's a little bit of a story behind this. This is actually part of right-of-way that is being abandoned. It's right-of-way for St. Julian Street between Commonwealth and Independence. If you look on the aerial, you can see this is the half that is proposed to be rezoned. There's another half that runs right along that portion. St. Julian Street, like I said, dead ends right here at Independence. The adjacent property owners have petitioned the city to abandon this right-of-way. And as typical with a right-of-way abandonment process, half of the property will go to the property owner on the east and half will go to the property owner on the west. Well, once this abandonment is completed, which is scheduled for completion, I believe, next week at your city council meeting, then the property owner on this side has a purchase agreement for this strip of land. Now I want to talk to you about the zoning, and I'll put all this together for you. This property is zoned B1 PED. this side is zoned R5. With zoning, we go to the center line of the street. So the property, when you take the whole street, half of it is going to be B1 PED and half of it's going to be R5. The property owner on this side that has the purchase agreement wants to include this portion in their development. So they need to rezone it to B1 PED. So that's the request that's before you tonight, is to rezone that 1/10 of an acre to B1 PED. Now, it will be combined with the B1 PED property that is adjacent to it for development. This is consistent with this Plaza Central Pedscape recommendation for multifamily office and retail uses in this area. Like I said, the right-of-way abandonment process will be completed before you actually have to vote on this rezoning, and there are no outstanding issues.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from council? There are no speakers signed up. Ms. Kinsey?
Just a quick one. I just missed this, Tammy. The petitioner is asking for both sides of the right-of-way to be rezoned.
No, they're asking for one side of the right-of-way.
Just his side.
Actually, no, it's the opposite side. His side is already, this side is already zoned B1 PED.
Okay.
Okay? This is R5. So when all of this is abandoned, they want to take the R5 portion and combine it with the B1
Which
PED.
technically belongs to his neighbor.
Right, and they've got an agreement to purchase.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Driggs.
I just wanted to say we better do something about this, because 1/10 of an acre that's zoned R5 doesn't make a lot of sense.
We can't get much on it.
Right. Mr. Phipps?
It's going to be a little house.
Was there any consideration given, serious consideration given to connectivity to East Independence Boulevard?
I believe that through the abandonment process, that has all been vetted, and that if CDOT had an issue, it would not have gotten as far through the abandonment process as it has.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
To close the public hearing.
We have a motion for Mr. Howard, second by Mr. Driggs. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The next item is item 30. It is petition 2014-67, also in City Council District 1, Ms. Kinsey's district, by Aldersgate United Methodist Retirement Community Incorporated for a change in zoning for approximately 91.31 acres located on the south side of Shamrock Drive, across from Glenville Avenue, and the east side of Eastway Drive, across from Dunlaven Way, from R17MF multifamily and institutional CD to institutional CD and institutional CD with a site plan amendment. Staff recommends approval of this petition upon the resolution of outstanding issues, and I would note that we have one speaker signed up in favor of the petition. Ms. Keplinger.
This is a request to rezone a small portion of R17 multifamily to institutional, and to amend the existing site plan for the institutional CD. This is all part of the Aldersgate United Methodist Retirement Community, and it's located between Shamrock Drive and Eastway. And you can see the portion that is currently zoned R17MF. One thing I want to point out to you is right here is a park and rec ball field, and the zoning line is proposed to go straight through this. We're going to talk about this in just a minute, and I'm going to tell you about a special request that they have in regard to that ball field. In terms of the development, you can see they have some cottages that are developed over on this side that are also part of the retirement community, but this is the main portion of their site. In terms of this request, you have to turn your head a little bit. Shamrock is up here now. There are no changes in the areas that are in gray. Those are all to remain the same. The area where the ball field is located right here, and the property line and the zoning line are going to run right through the middle of it. Now, normally we would require a buffer through the middle of that right there along that property line because it's a break between residential and institutional. But because there's the ball field that is very active, we are looking, the petitioner submitted a request for an alternative buffer, which will be approved by Planning, Engineering, and CDOT to move that buffer to the outside of that ball field so that ball field can remain active. And there's a note on the site plan that if that ball field ever ceases to exist, that they will put the buffer in place as it's needed. Now, in terms of the development itself, the proposal is to allow the expansion of the retirement community. The area of the largest expansion will be in this vicinity. What they are doing is adding 125 independent units and 150 dependent beds. They have some buildings that they are contemplating tearing down and some new buildings that they will put up. This is all in the center core of their development. So there's a lot of movement that will occur within, but an overall the development that is approved, the development rights that are approved for the site will not be exceeded. In terms of the future land use, the area plan recommends institutional for the main portion of the site. For the little area that's zoned R17 MF, it does recommend multifamily just by the nature of that zoning. But we feel it is appropriate. Multifamily uses are consistent with the Eastland area plan and the institutional uses also. So we are recommending approval upon the resolution of all of the outstanding issues.
Thank you, Ms. Keplinger. We have one speaker signed up in favor of Suzanne Pugh. Are you here, ma'am? Yes. Excellent. Okay.
Good evening. I'm the Chief Executive Officer at Aldersgate United Methodist Retirement Community, and with 10,000 baby boomers retiring, turning 65 at least, every day in the U.S., we began about 2 years ago a very intensive strategic planning process. We've been operating, serving elders for close to 70 years now, right there on Shamrock Drive. I will assure you that the first question we asked, because this would not be, were we a greenfield, would probably not be a typical place that we would go to develop the type of business that we have historically done in Charlotte. All of our competitors are, in fact, in the South Park area primarily. But I sat with Ms. Campbell, I think it was almost 2 years ago, and said, you know, our board is looking very closely at our future and how we remain sustainable, not only in our core mission, but also how can we continue to connect to the community around us. In that regard, our first question at the master planning table was, do we stay or do we go? And after looking very closely at not only our core business plan, but also thinking very deeply about our place in the East community around us, we made a very intentional decision to not only stay, but as of this past Wednesday, our board approved an investment of close to $70 million in expansion on our property there in East Charlotte. We have 227 acres. Actually, as of tomorrow, we'll have 234. We're the largest employer in the area. We've been around for a long time, and we are very committed to the east side of Charlotte. This replacement, the largest building you see there is a skilled nursing facility. This will allow us the opportunity to continue to serve folks who are the most frail at this point in their lives. We've also petitioned the state to add beds there to allow us the opportunity to serve more folks. We largely serve short-term post-acute rehab in that building, and we serve over 600 elders annually just in that building. We serve another 400 across the rest of our campus. We are committed to our mission. We're committed to the east side, and we respectfully request your consideration of this petition as we strive to continue to make the east side a growing and thriving area of Charlotte. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Any questions from the council? Mr. Phipps.
Yeah, I was confused in reading the staff analysis. Actually, how many units are we talking about here? How many units do we have currently? And when you add the amount that they're proposing, how many total units would that be?
Right now, and I'll ask Suzanne if I'm wrong on this, if she will correct me, but we believe that there are 294 independent and dependent living units. Let's see. And about 90,000 square feet of common facilities, which are their operational areas.
It's actually more.
Yeah, may I speak? I mean, currently, 525 units are allowed per the 1999 rezoning, and what was being requested is an additional 275.
Okay.
150 of those would be for the skilled nursing or dependent beds, and 125 of those would be for additional independent living units, multifamily units.
So that.
And what was your name, sir, for the record?
Sorry, I'm Frank Patroci.
Madam Clerk, do you have that? She'll get it. She's going to get it. All right. Yes.
So that's 800 units then?
Yes.
Okay. Now, another question, last question, and I think the petitioner answered it. So a certificate of need is required then to add additional beds?
Right. So in the state of North Carolina, to add additional licensed skilled nursing beds, we must apply for a certificate of need, and we have already petitioned for that. We actually had our public hearing for that this past Friday, and would expect to hear from that within the next couple of months. And to be clear, those are only for the additional 20 beds. We currently have licenses for 100. This would add 20 more that would be sheltered beds for folks who have contracts with Aldersgate currently.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Yes, sir. There was a motion by Mr. Howard to close. Is there a second?
Second.
Now he wants to talk. Okay. Mr. Howard?
I wanted to commend Suzanne on making a really smart move. She asked Pat Garrett, who moved to Wilmington, to join their board of directors. So they got some top talent out there.
She's a winner for us. And I should also comment, if I may, that there was a request, from what I'm understanding, from Parks and Rec about the possibility of an easement related to a swim buffer area. And our board has likewise approved to work with the Parks and Rec in that regard as well, to be able to offer that.
Appreciate that. Was there a second to Mr. Howard's motion? Mr. Kinsey made the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Thank
opposed?
you.
Thank you. We appreciate it. All right. The next item is item 30.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion that we recuse Ms. Lyles from
Okay.
31.
Okay. Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The second item is petition number 2014-69. It's item 31. It's outside the city limits. It is by Novant Health for a change in zoning for approximately 81.75 acres located on the northeast quadrant at the intersection of Albemarle Road and I-485 from institutional CD and B1 CD to O2 CD office conditional and B1 CD SPA neighborhood business conditional with a site plan amendment. Staff does not recommend approval of this petition in its current form. We have a presentation from Ms. Keplinger, and then we'll also have a list of speakers in support of the petition who will have a combined 3 minutes. Ms. Keplinger.
Yes, sir. Just to orient everyone, this is I-485. This is Albemarle Road. The site that we're talking about is in the northeast quadrant. You can see that there has been some grading on this site, but no development to date. In terms of the rezoning request, I want to talk a little bit about what was approved in 2008 for this property. The property was rezoned from R3 to B1 CD neighborhood business conditional for a 100-bed hospital, for 140,000 square feet of medical office space, and for 20,000 square feet of retail uses. The request that's before us today is to rezone from institutional and B1 CD to O2 CD, which is office, conditional district, and neighborhood business CD SPA, which is conditional site plan amendment. The request is to modify the previous approval to 50 beds in the hospital and 117,000 square feet of general office, retail, commercial uses. You can see on the site plan that I have on the board, there's a proposed public street right off of Albemarle that feeds into the development. This is the area of business zoning, of neighborhood business, and this is the area of office zoning. The total buildings will not exceed 9, and there are some transfers that are allowed between the office square footage and the retail square footage between the office and the business districts. In terms of the commercial section, there's only one accessory drive-through that is permitted, and it cannot be associated with a restaurant. There are buffers on the perimeter of the site, and there are a number of transportation improvements. You can also see that they have a proposed helipad for the hospital. These are the elevations of the building from the north and the south sides. One of the outstanding issues is that staff has asked them to clarify the types of building materials that are shown in these elevations, so that we will have those for the record. In terms of future land use, the land use does recommend institutional and retail for this site based on the rezoning that was approved in 2008, and that's the Albemarle Road I-485 interchange plan. So it is consistent with that plan recommendation. However, there are several transportation issues that exist, and I'd like to call Mike Davis up to talk about those, and then we'll complete the slides.
So try to just give you a really brief summary of this. And I'll start by saying we're actually very close to being able to recommend support from a transportation side. There's some details to work out, but essentially what this has been about from a transportation perspective is when we first saw this zoning come through and it was approved as a larger format hospital with more uses, generating more traffic, there was a larger commitment in terms of infrastructure. And what we've been evaluating with the petitioner is just trying to make sure that what is now proposed, which is a smaller format, generating less traffic, the infrastructure proposed is adequate to handle it. So that's been some pretty technical back and forth. That's also been pretty recent. It's been ongoing, but recently we've had some progress in terms of understanding what probably needs to be done relating to specific driveway locations, and also how we set up that future street to be extended through additional development later on. So I can walk you through the details, but essentially it is that we think we've got it scaled right now, but we'll need to get it detailed properly on the plan before zoning committee.
Okay. We have a slew of speakers signed up in favor of Mr. Jeff Brown, Troy Pollard, David Park, Philip Hobbs, Jay Clapp, and Matthew Steen. Mr. Brown, are you going to be representing all those gentlemen?
We'll consolidate that.
Okay. You've got 3 minutes, so each of you has 10 seconds.
I think we will go short because I think we do essentially have staff.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, that's correct. Because staff is in opposition, you have 10 minutes.
Well, I like to think with the amendment of the discussions, we might be on the same page, but we'll try to keep it real brief anyway.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
My name is David Park. I'm Senior Vice President of Construction and Facility Services for Nivon Health. I've been involved with this project literally from day one. The project located in East Charlotte adjacent to Mint Hill is one that is near and dear to us, and we have been looking at this and working through a number of infrastructure issues over the time to get to the point that we're ready to start construction. I want to be very clear that the reduction in the hospital beds has nothing to do with what was approved from the CON. We will be building the hospital as defined, as approved by the state in the CON. The reduction was a matter of 50 future beds, and with healthcare's current unstable environment, we're not sure when those 50 future beds would be needed. So that's the reason for stepping back from 100 beds to 50 beds. Jeff's going to walk you through much more detail, and like he said, I think we have most of the traffic issues resolved and hopefully can move forward.
Thank you, David. Again, it's a pleasure to be assisting Novant Health on this matter. And it is an exciting project. I know we had a community meeting in which residents from both the Charlotte, east side of Charlotte, as well as residents from Mint Hill were coming. A lot of enthusiasm and excitement to see this positive development moving forward. We really are talking about trying to ensure that it's done in a way that will ensure proper transportation adequacy, because the nature of the project is actually reducing the amount of the development. We are making some other changes that are relocating the buildings a little bit. Because of the different format that the hospital is using, there's some changes in the footprints that we're proposing. We do appreciate very much the work we've had with the staff and also with CDOT and NCDOT. This is a project at a high impact intersection, and we want to make sure it's done right. There's also quite a bit of development that is near the site, and we want to make sure that the design of the project ultimately is set up to ensure that we have connectivity long term to the undeveloped land that is nearby. So those are some items that we've worked very hard on. We thank Mike Davis and Dennis Rory and others at CDOT for their efforts. Again, I've mentioned the reasons for the rezoning and the project coming before you tonight. There is a reduction not only in the potential for the future beds, but also there's a reduction back to 50, which is consistent with the certificate of need. But there's also a reduction in the amount of the entitlement for the office to allow us again to make this move forward, but in a way that will work for the transportation improvements. I will not go through all this because we're the last petition, but I will just highlight, for example, on this slide and in front of you is the types of transportation improvements that are taking place in connection with the first portion of the development, which is the bulk of the development, although there is a good bit that will be withheld for future transportation improvements on the network. But this gives you a sense of some of the improvements that Mr. Davis and we've been working with CDOT on, and we're going to continue to refine the notes really in a matter of a day or so that we'll be ready to go for the zoning committee. One item that we discussed was, in addition to the primary entrance into the hospital site, we also will have a right out, could be a right in, right out in this location that will ensure that the traffic leaving the site in the PM peak hour queues properly. That's just one example of the type of efforts that we've done with CDOT as we've gone through this traffic study work. I won't go through all the other improvements. I will point out on this slide, which is the long-term plan, the long-term framework for transportation for the area, and that is in the green area. Novant's boundary stops at this location, so we don't own the rest of the property. There are a number of other property owners that own the property moving to the east. We had discussions with CDOT and NCDOT that as these properties get developed, there would be a potential connection road here and out to Albemarle Road to provide additional relief. We have held back development from our project in a phase that would not, that development could not be developed until the connection roads would take place. And so I'm giving you a sense of the types of work we've had with CDOT. Happy to go into the detail, but except to say that we're very pleased that CDOT, through our efforts, and NCDOT finds that we're in the right place, and we'll be finalizing these aspects as we move to zoning. Very pleased to also reference in the material that was provided by Susan, Ms. Lindsay earlier, the meeting we had with representatives from the east side of Charlotte who came to the community meeting with support. And I'd also like to recognize in the audience Troy Pollard, who's a longtime resident of the area. Many of you know he's also been very supportive, come to meetings, and he's here. I'll ask him to raise his hand. He's here also to offer late night support of this project. But we're happy to answer any questions. We thank you for your patience tonight. I know it's been a long evening, and we're pleased that we're on the same page with the staff going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I wanted to ask a question, if I might, Ms. Hagler-Gray. Can I ask him what the value of this investment is? I'm curious about the cost of building a hospital facility and such.
I can't tell you not to ask it, but price point shouldn't be a consideration in the final determination of the rezoning.
I understand. He heard the question. If he wanted to volunteer and answer, he could, right?
Correct.
And thank you for coming. Did you come down here from Forsyth County?
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you for driving.
This is important. I've been working on this project since I bought the site.
We get it. Well,
There's nothing more important to me today than what we're doing right here. A hospital project really gets broken into components. You have the site, the construction, and the equipment. The total investment out here is all said and done somewhere in the $80 to $100 million range. Total number of jobs that would be out there in our recent experience, similar size hospitals, 350 to 400. And that investment will pretty much start as soon as we've got the go ahead. We've got a lot of infrastructure work to do, so we probably got years worth of infrastructure and design, but we have to, in order to meet the CON, we have to open the hospital in 2018. We're on target to do that.
I appreciate that. And welcome back to Charlotte.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith, and then Mr. Driggs.
Will Novant be the primary tenant in the MOB? Or y'all?
The MOB that is on the back of the hospital, that is adjacent to the hospital, we will be the primary tenant. The MOBs out partial on the front, we will probably occupy some of them, but hopefully, quite honestly, that is done for us to encourage other non-Novant physicians to come to the campus.
Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Driggs.
Does the CON, as it now stands, allow you to put up to 100 beds at this location?
No, sir. The CON as it stands only allows for 50, and that's what we are rezoning to. The original zoning, we asked for 100, anticipating doubling the hospital over time. We do not know that that is a logical conclusion at this time based on the number of outpatient ambulatory surgery cases we're seeing in healthcare going forward.
Shorter lengths of stay.
Sorry?
Shorter lengths of stay.
Very much shorter length of stay.
Yeah.
And most of our ORs are outpatient now.
So there's no contingent plan already to expand to 100. Right now you're going with the 50.
That's correct. Right now it's at 50. We will build it for possible infrastructure to expand, but right now we're asking for 50.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Phipps.
Yeah. Ms. Kaplichik, are we looking to the petitioner to bear all the costs associated with the road improvements?
I'd like to defer that question to Mike Davis.
So that would just depend on which improvements you're talking about. There are some that the petitioner pays for now that, for example, on Albemarle Road where there might be provisions made for U-turns and the leftover treatment, for example. We're also looking for some contribution to the long-term street network, and so part of that is done by Novant paying for the construction of the street on their property, and then likely some additional contribution to pay for a portion of that Phase 2 infrastructure that was mentioned. It will ultimately require that other development pick that up and build the rest of that street network.
Thank you. Okay.
Mr.
We've got a couple of public streets in here that right now just terminate at the boundaries, and I'm wondering whether we know already how we intend for them to join up and what kind of traffic flows to expect when those connections have been made.
I don't know if we can go back maybe one where I can try to use the laser pointer. So the long-term plan would be that this location, which is not going to be in play in the near term, would be the signalized access that would be full movement for the hotel. And the reason it's this one and not this one is because NCDOT primarily requires a minimum separation from the interchange ramp. And so that's why the right long-term infrastructure is that we get a street that can access the signal with a connection back this way. So the near term will be heavily reliant on the leftover. We think this can work fine today with the addition of some additional egress in particular from the hospital. But understand this is essentially where you've got to make rights out to either access 45 or make a U-turn. That can probably work. According to NCDOT's technical analysis of this, they think that can work for the next 10 to 15 years. In the long term, it's going to require that this gets built. If that does not come on, if that doesn't get put on the table in that 10 to 15 year time frame, we may be back looking at whether or not this can operate in some different fashion, like, for example, a signalized leftover. So, but I don't know the numbers. That's just sort of generally how that's meant to work.
I was actually also looking in the other direction, going up to the top of that picture. You've got an ER in there, and when I look at that neck between the two, it just looks to me like if you had higher traffic volumes, there's a lot of potential for congestion through there.
This site, this plan may do a better job. So as I recall the site, now we're turned a little bit 90 degrees, but so this connection here, I think, as I recall the topography, probably has pretty limited ability to serve much additional development. This street will have some more traffic. And so are you referring to the interaction between this and that driveway?
I'm referring to the one that goes out to the left now and just ends, right? That's a public street that goes to the left of the property. It just ends. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't expect that can serve too much land based on the topography.
So we don't have a problem with emergency vehicle access through, again, that bottleneck thing there.
Yeah, I mean, basically being a hospital, the way the emergency access is going to be mostly concerned is about ingress. So not to, I mean, egress is important too. It's mostly getting in. And so no, the way that the access that sets up is sort of the way I described it. I think in the near term it's going to be very good. In the long term it should be fine too with the addition of additional infrastructure. And if not, we'll have to basically reconfigure some of the access that we're setting up now.
Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
Got a second from Ms. Mayfield. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, gentlemen, for staying with us for this late hour. Our final petition for tonight is item 32. It is petition 2014-70. It is in City Council District 3, Ms. Mayfield's district. It is by the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Planning Department for a change in zoning for approximately 0.63 acres located on the east side of South Church Street between West Summit Avenue and West Bland Street from I-2 General Industrial to Todd M Transit-Oriented Development Mixed. And staff recommends approval of this petition. So I'm sure this will be a fairly brief presentation because there are no speakers.
Brief presentation. This is the subject site. It is currently zoned I-2 I-1 General Industrial. It's undeveloped. The request is to go to Todd M, which is consistent with the Southeast Transit Station Area Plan that was adopted in 2005. It is within half mile of the Bland Street Transit Station, and staff is recommending approval.
Okay. Any?
We're almost done.
Mr. Smith.
I assume Mr. Belk has no opposition.
I believe no, that he does not.
He's not here.
I was going to say, yeah. Is that even possible?
We've had people not show up that are post up. He's just
move to close. Okay, second.
I just want to make sure.
Is there a second on the motion to close? Ms. Kinsey gave a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah. Any mayor and council topics, any issues from the manager? Ms. Mayfield?
Okay, so this has been a busy weekend and Monday for the city. So one, I would like to congratulate the Smart Start Board and Council for Children's Rights. Earlier today, here at the Government Center in room 267, they held the Judicial and Law Enforcement Lunch and Learn. So I have on my little Ask Me About the First 2,000 Days button. So for those of you at home, if you did not already know, the first 2,000 days between the time of birth and beginning kindergarten is when the brain's architecture is first being formed. So just a little bit of information to share regarding prenatal care and getting ready for kindergarten. Second, would love to congratulate Charlotte's Blackgate Pride Board and volunteers for this past weekend. They hosted actually a 5-day celebration and education of Charlotte's African American, lesbian, gay, bi, and trans community. Also want to congratulate Mr. Herb and Felicia Gray on the 2014 Gray Classic. The 100 black men were the beneficiaries and supporters, and 3 young men received a total of $18,000 in scholarship, going from $3,000, $5,000, and the oldest young man $10,000 for the next 4 years every year to cover his schooling. So congratulations to them.
They
and
could each buy houses in Dilworth.
Right.
$6 grand each.
Once he graduates from college, he'll be able to do that. Hopefully we can keep that creative talent right here. And my final will be a point of privilege. I would like to thank the voters of Q-List as well as the Center of Black Equity for the award and acknowledgement this past Wednesday and Friday evening. So, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Yes,
One last,
yes,
and
ma'am.
this will be the last one. Countdown, July 31st, starting at 8:30 a.m. The Charlotte Premium Outlet will have the breakfast with the outlet opening up, I believe, at 9:30. So, yay!
It'll be exciting. Mr. Phipps.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the residents of District 4 and the city at large for a very successful identity theft shred event that we had on Saturday at IKEA. I want to thank our corporate, our community partners, Centos, IKEA, Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department, Charlotte Fire, Charlotte 311, and the FBI. Matter of fact, we collected about 19,300 pounds of sensitive documents to shred.
12,000 pounds from IKEA.
That comes up to about.
No, they brought.
That comes to about like 9.6 tons of sensitive documents. And Councilmember Autry, I think being the chair of the environmental committee, you can appreciate this in terms of environmental savings. We saved 19 barrels of oil, 164 trees, 67,480 gallons of water, 29 cubic yards from going to the landfill, 38,560 kilowatt hours we saved. I could go on and on, I know you but can. I know y'all ready to go home. But it was very successful. It was very successful, and I really do appreciate people coming out and taking advantage of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Phipps. Mr. Howard.
Yeah, mine is a referral. I'd actually like to ask the Transportation Planning Committee to get an update on the Gateway Station. It's been a while since we've heard anything from the state, and I'd like to kind of see where that is and see if we have a plan on how to figure out how to move forward with it. I'm not sure the state's doing what they said they were going to do with Hines, and I think we need to maybe make some suggestions to them on what to do. There's probably no more important piece of that in the city of Charlotte than that station. So if that's okay without objection.
No opposition and no objection. That's fine. Ms. Lyles, anything? Excellent. Ms. Kinsey.
I do have. I just want to thank Neighborhood and Business Services for the Neighborhood Symposium this past Saturday. I spent about 2 hours there, going from there were 4 neighborhoods from District 1, so I visited all of those neighborhoods. And
y'all had rezonas tonight.
Pardon me?
Y'all had rezonas tonight. You had all the rezonas.
I had all the rezoning. Well, I had a lot of them, but they do a great job, and the neighborhoods were going great guns. So, and I know Al. I saw Al, and I know that there were others there, but it was great.
Excellent.
It's great.
Gentlemen, anything down there? Mr. Driggs.
I just, as Intergovernmental Relations Chair, wanted to acknowledge Dana Fenton, who has been bravely on the front lines in Raleigh, reporting on activity there, and look forward to getting kind of a wrap-up of the short session. We know a lot of things have come up. Some of them have been acted on, others haven't. I think it'd be useful for all of us to get a synopsis of everything that was done in Raleigh, because we're coming to a close.
Right. We hope.
Yeah.
We hope, right?
Bit by bit, yeah.
So I wanted to take a brief moment to thank the ladies of Alpha Kappa Alpha for holding their convention in Charlotte last week. They made a tremendous impression on the city. I think the city made a tremendous impression on them. I want to thank the CRVA, Tom Murray, and his people for executing very efficiently and effectively. I've heard nothing but positive things about that convention, so that's a good thing. And so hopefully they liked us, we liked them, and we'd like them to come back. So, anything else? Ms. Kinsey?
Just
Yes, ma'am.
piggyback on that, I had the pleasure of meeting with the mayor from Baltimore this past week, AKA, and to talk about what we're doing here with our affordable housing. And Pam Weidman took her on a tour of some of our developments. Hope 6.
Go to Brightwalk?
Right.
Pardon me?
Did she go to Brightwalk? No, I'm joking.
Yes, they were going to Brightwalk. Yes, they were.
That's
Yeah.
right. All right. If nothing else, we'll have another long and fun meeting next Monday, the 28th of July. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Excellent. Have a good night. Thanks.
Okay.